voting, Republicans now planning to ask the Supreme Court, the High Court, and this is in the wake of the passing of Associate Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, to review a major Pennsylvania state Supreme Court ruling that had extended the due date for mail ballots in Pennsylvania. So people obviously were very aware of that case in the Pennsylvania State Supreme Court. Well, Republicans are planning to somehow delay that ruling or to push back on that ruling. And this could be a really big test, because this actually, and this is all about Pennsylvania, but Pennsylvania is not only an election battleground, but it'll be a legal battleground. But this is the first test, the first real big test of the Supreme Court, not only since the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, but also the real first battle in what promises to be a protracted legal fight, or a series of legal fights, over election 2020. So we're bringing on Scott Seaborg for a few minutes to talk about that. Scott, can you hear us?
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, Charles.
All right, excellent. No, thanks for joining us at such last-minute notice. What's happening here in the courts of mail-in voting? How concerned are you about this latest move to take this to the High Court?
So the legal situation in Pennsylvania right now, I think, is an analog to the type of cynical misinformation attempts we've seen over the last few years to put up barriers in front of voters between them and their ballot box. This all started with Act 77, which was a reform that happened last year, biggest reform in something like 80 years, and it allowed some modern changes to the law, which essentially means, for voters, anybody can request a mail-in ballot. And they also authorized two other things that are a big change for this election: drop boxes, securely sort of stationed drop boxes that voters can safely, in socially distanced way, drop their ballots off at that box. We also have satellite voting centers in counties, right, which are essentially a way for folks to go in and vote early in Pennsylvania by utilizing the vote by mail tool. And there will be, county workers at these places to help you vote early. And so, there is one party in the state and in the country that's really doing their best to tear down vote-by-mail options, even in the face of this pandemic. And the first move to do that was a lawsuit filed against Pennsylvania, essentially, in my view, working to silence Pennsylvania voters and supersede the bipartisan law that was passed by our state legislature. And they essentially argued that, counties aren't responsible enough to be able to utilize drop boxes, and there will be, massive instances of irregularities with ballots. And they also challenged the early vote centers, and, they really are doing everything they can to confuse people and put up barriers. A few days ago, there was a resolution in that case which essentially said that, yes, the state law says that drop boxes can be used by counties, and they can, and also that satellite voting centers are something that can be used. And in addition to that, there was a ruling that is going to allow ballots to be postmarked by Election Day and received by the Friday after to still be counted, right? And so, Attorney General Josh Shapiro really came out strong and said, this is a win for Pennsylvania voters. We're able to use drop boxes. We have more ability to vote in different ways, so we're not all squeezed into in-person voting centers at the same time, should that be the way you want to vote. And instead of sort of accepting that, the PA Supreme Court made the right decision for the voters and their duly elected constituents, they're saying things like, and I quote, "The election system approved by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court is not found in current law and opens the door to diminishing everyone's vote." And that could not be further from the truth.
Hey, Scott, how much do you worry that news of this back and forth between Republicans in the state, Republicans and Democrats in the state, Republicans and county elections officials. Like this back and forth, this constant sparring over the parameters of mail-in voting, how this process is supposed to work, the procedures. How worried are you about how this affects voter confidence or voters' ability to discern exactly what's going on here, and ultimately affect turnout? Because I think that's kind of the game here, right? It's like, okay, well, it's kind of like a sort of 2-for-1 scenario. I mean, ultimately at the end, either way, whether we delay this or either if we keep this going back and forth over the next 40 days, it's going to depress turnout. Do you see indications of that, signs where people are like, you know what, enough is enough already. I'm just not going to submit my mail-in ballots. I don't trust this. I don't trust this process.
I think that county election officials are really stuck between a rock and a hard place. And know that they're doing the best they can to work with the legal proceedings and the state laws to make sure voters have every possible option to cast their ballot. We know that stuff like this is designed to throw up barriers between people and their ballot box. And so will it have some type of effect? I believe so. But I also believe that voters in Pennsylvania and voters across the nation have been in a political environment where misinformation and disinformation are kind of the name of the game, especially for the individual sitting in the White House. And so I have confidence that while one side of the political spectrum is doing everything they can, again, to tear down these new laws, to tear down these opportunities that are really there to help us vote and also help us vote safely, that voters can see through that. Voters can, really listen to their county election officials and will be able to make a safe decision about their ballots. One thing I would definitely say is, we've got an entire advocacy community here dedicated to making sure we get the word out to folks, no matter what that word is or when that word comes down. And I think, alternatively, the state really learned a lot from the engagement in the primary on vote by mail and has done some heavy investing on deep level community education. And so I think that's a good sign.
Yeah. I think, the key lesson here, or at least the key takeaway from this is do not get discouraged. Do not get discouraged, right? I mean, and I'm gonna let you go in a second, Scott, but that's really like the key sort of moral of this. People are just going to have to soldier through for the next 40 days, get your ballots in, whether that's by mail-in ballot. Elections officials in different counties, including Philadelphia County, are also making adjustments and ensuring that polling places are open, so people need to turn out and vote. You have to turn out and vote. You see where people are playing games. Apparently, your vote is important, everyone out there. Your vote is important. If it wasn't important, people wouldn't be spending so much time and millions of dollars on lawyers' fees to stop you from doing just that, from voting. So you see it, the proof is right there on how important your vote is. Scott, thanks for your time. Really appreciate this. I know this was last minute for you, and we'll get you on again real soon for a little bit more time, but really appreciate your time this morning.
Absolutely. Grateful to be here, Charles. Thank you.
All right. Take care. Be safe out there. All right, let's take a break, and when we come back on the other side, we'll be talking with Brandy Calander, partnering at the Rayburn Group. We're going to talk about this new She Will Rise campaign, the effort to, in the future, at some point, appoint a black woman Supreme Court justice. Why we do need to talk about a black woman Supreme Court justice, even at a time like this. All right, here on Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WordRadio.com, Word TV, Word app. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Get your money straight. Get my money right. With Solomon Jones and Akbar Hassan. Fridays on Wake Up with Word. 7 a.m. till 10 a.m. Hosted by Solomon Jones. Exclusively on Word Radio. 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Streaming live on WordRadio.com and on the Word Radio app.
During these unprecedented times, we're creating a lot of extra trash, and that means delays across the city with curbside collection. That's why we have some simple tips that will help you to reduce curbside waste and collection delays. Reduce food waste by using garbage disposals or composting, and limit bulk waste to 2 items per household. Set out trash properly. That means using sturdy trash bags and covering containers with lids. Make sure your trash bags are not heavier than 40 pounds. Set out trash trash no earlier than 7 p.m. before your collection day and 7 a.m. the day of collection. And remember, you can drop off materials at sanitation convenience centers 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Last and most importantly, thank our sanitation workers for their hard work during these challenging times. We all have a role to play to curb our waste and help our city. Learn more at philadelphiastreets.com.
Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM. WURD.
How do we make sense of our nation's history with race, privilege, and inequality? On Thursday, September 24th at 6 p.m., join Pulitzer Prize-winning author and Harvard University historian Annette Gordon-Reed as she discusses the challenges of wrestling with America's complicated past. This free virtual event is part of the Museum of the American Revolution's Carl M. Buchholz lecture series. Tickets are free, but registration is required at amrevmuseum.org or by calling 215-253-6731.
He's back.
This is Reverend Al Sharpton.
Keeping it real with the Reverend Al Sharpton.
In times like these, we have to stay connected.
At a brand new time, Monday through Thursday, 9 p.m. till midnight.
I'm excited that Keeping It Real returns to WURD.
Keeping it real with the Reverend Al Sharpton. Monday through Thursday, 9 p.m. till midnight. This program is pre-recorded. No phone calls, please.
Keep it locked to WURD 96.1 FM, 900 AM. WURDradio.com.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on Word Radio and WordRadio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM. Also, WordRadio.com and Word TV, Word app. Some of you watching us on Facebook Live on our Word TV stream, also at youtube.com/onWord. I'm Charles Ellison, by the way. Welcome to the program. Welcome to the Wednesday, midweek edition. Go to @EllisonReport, #RealityCheck on social media for more there. Highly engaged on Twitter.com, @EllisonReport on Twitter.com. Also, the BENote.com, which is our companion magazine here for Reality Check on WURD. Also, we have coming up on Friday, this Friday morning, doing a discussion on remote learning, on online learning. I know it's a lot of you out there very curious about remote learning. A lot of you also struggling with remote learning. Your children, your young people dealing with online learning. You're also struggling with a lot of the decisions that policymakers and school districts are making with respect to that. Go to the THEBENote.com for more information on the discussion that I'm having in conjunction with partnership with the Council of State Governments, Council on Communities of Color. There will be a number of state legislators that will be involved there. We are doing this also in partnership with K-12 Incorporated. We're going to talk about remote learning. Is it just for a pandemic, or is it the future? Is it for the future? So check that out. It's a free event. You can check it and you have an opportunity to ask folks questions. I'll be moderating that event. That is at 10 a.m. this Friday, 10 a.m. this Friday. For more information, go to THEBENote.com for more information, or @EllisonReport on Twitter.com as well. I'll give out more information throughout the course of this Wednesday edition of Reality Check. Joining us now is Brandy Calander. She is a partner at the Raven Group. Go to ravengroup.com for more information. She's also joined us before, former Obama administration counsel official, focused quite a bit on environmental justice issues. But she's here to talk about a new campaign that's just been launched called She Will Rise. It's the push to force more people, more policymakers, candidates to talk about a future Black woman Supreme Court justice. So we're bringing her on to talk about that issue and others with respect to the Supreme Court today here on Reality Check. Brandy, good to have you back. How are you doing?
I'm good. Good morning, Charles. Thank you for having me.
All right. Good morning. Good morning. So She Will Rise. Real quick, I want to talk about that. You want people to start talking about and making a push, particularly in a season like this, on a Black woman Supreme Court justice. I do remember that promise that Joe Biden made months ago in that very last Democratic presidential primary debate he had with Bernie Sanders, where he said, you know what, I am going to pick I'm going to not, if I get the opportunity, I will pick a black woman Supreme Court justice. So you want to make sure that he keeps to that promise, or that other people, if that opportunity arises in the future, that's something that is on the table, that it stays on the table.
I do, but I want to step back and provide a little bit more context about the work that we're doing. So the She Will Rise campaign, Charles, is developed by a cohort of black women who feel strongly that the bottom line is we've never been reflected in the 230-year and counting history of the Supreme Court ever once on the bench. And I think if you really sit with that reality, it's clear that we are not holding true to the promise of delivering on democracy from the perspective of all Americans, because you have an entire demographic that's not even reflected. And there are other demographics that are not completely reflected either. So I do want to acknowledge that. One of the pieces that's really exciting about this campaign, which is an initiative supported by Demand Justice, is that it's a cohort of women, like I said, and so we are able to be intentional about being in the moment authentically as black women. And so sort of my partners in crime, the cohort, April Rain and Kim Tignor and Sabria Williams, are all really heavily focused on making sure that this is an approachable issue, and we thank Demand Justice for being supportive of that. We want to make sure that people who traditionally don't feel like they have the space or interest to think about the Supreme Court and the role that it plays in their lives, to recognize that it is absolutely core to how they move through the world, and specifically their agency as United States American citizens. So you asked about Joe Biden, and I just want to be clear, this is a bipartisan effort. And so, yes, we are glad that Joe Biden has recognized that it's time to get on the right side of history and create history. But this has very little to do with one presidential candidate. This has everything to do with the negation since the founding of the Supreme Court and righting that wrong. And so we are excited because there is such a strong bench of black women who would be ready to assume this role on day one, whenever day one comes, right? And potentially sooner than later, right? But I do feel like it is so important for folks to recognize, especially as we pay homage to the late, forever honorable Ruth Bader Ginsburg, that she was only the second woman, Charles, only the second woman to ever sit on the court.
Yeah. You know what? Who are those women, right? You know, because it's kind of and being slightly facetious, but you know, slightly ironic here, right? We heard this comment from the CEO of Wells Fargo Bank yesterday, where he was saying, you know what, I can't find enough qualified black talent to work at the highest levels of Wells Fargo, and we all know that that's not true. But it's the same conversation when we get on the when we have these Supreme Court openings. I was frankly a bit stunned that the opportunity didn't present itself to President Obama. A lot of people say that they feel like, you know, we love you, President Obama, but you could have picked a black woman to fill like those slots when you had the opportunity. But you know, that all said, who are those black women? Who are those black women who sit on those federal benches, or who are in that pipeline? What are some names that people need to be familiar with as we think about this more intentionally as we head into the future?
Absolutely. So you can go to Demand Justice's website and see their short list. There's Michelle Alexander with the Union Theological Seminary. There's Sherry Beasley, who's currently sitting on the Supreme Court of North Carolina. There's Elise Bodie at Rutgers Law School. You have Fatima Goss-Graves with the National Women's Law Center. You have Ketanji. I mean, there are Janae Nelson. There are so many women who truly are already serving on the bench.
Right.
I mean, I know of women. There's Judge Yvonne Williams here in the D.C. area. I mean, there are so many women who literally have gone to the Harvards, the Yales, and those who have not gone to the Harvards and Yales and are still demonstrating extraordinary judicial discernment to be able to sit on this bench. And I'm intentional about saying, you know, to mention these schools from a pedigree perspective, because that is absolutely the reputation of the court. And I'm saying that despite the many black women who have had the chance to be able to check those boxes, they have never been able to pierce that glass ceiling, right? And now we have them, and we have a whole cadre of other women who have not gone to those schools, as we've seen with our potential vice presidential candidate, Kamala Harris, right, who went to an HBCU. And that will be historic to be able to have someone who's coming from a different grooming to demonstrate the excellence in these other institutions. So the bench is there, and I think it was such an unfortunate moment for the leadership at Wells Fargo, because I think that, just being generous in the interpretation, I think that I'm hopeful that there was real consideration around wanting to be more inclusive and just not having found the right partners and allies to support him in his search, right? That's my very, generous interpretation. I think if there's an intention about being inclusive, we can help you find the people. And so that's what the campaign's opportunity is, right? We're really here to say, look, and the Raven Group, the firm that I'm a principal with, we have had the pleasure of being involved in the judicial nomination processes for different levels of the court, including with Justice Sotomayor, Charles. And one of the things we learned is that it's not enough for this woman to get named, right? You've got to get her confirmed. And there's real infrastructure that goes into that work. So the coalition that we're looking to establish is sort of the third piece of this campaign. We have the cohort, that's the team, that's the squad. We're moving, we're working hard every day in partnership with Demand Justice. Then you will have basically this collective. We have a beautiful array of women who are lending their support because they're excited about this effort. That includes folks like Nicole Hannah-Jones, who we recently did an event with, Jamila Frone, who's the Vice President of Litigation at Earth Justice. You have Donna Hilton, who's an author and an activist and impacted by the criminal justice system. You have Audra McDonald, Brittany Packman. I mean, you have so many folks who are starting to say, they're raising their hands and saying, sign me up, they're interested. And the opportunity then is to establish this coalition that's the more formal body to do the work, irrespective of what happens in November.
Wow. Talking with Brandy Colander. She is a partner principal at the Raven Group. Go to ravengroup.com. Is that correct? Ravengroup.com for more on what they do, at B. Colander on social media, on Twitter, to see what she's up to. She's joined us occasionally here on. Normally we'll have discussions of an eco-word, environmental nature, but it's good to sort of talk about other issues as well, particularly with respect to the high court. And definitely looking forward to continuing this conversation with you, Brandy. Unfortunately, I got to let you go. We got to come to break, but I'm sure we're going to bring you back because we've been in touch. So really appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you. You all take care. And please sign our petition at sisterscotus.org. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for that. All right. We'll put that out. Let's take a break. And when we come back on the other side, we'll be talking with Philadelphia Health Department Philadelphia Health Commissioner Thomas Farley. Dr. Tom Farley is going to be joining us next, talk about coronavirus and masks. There's been a survey that's been done. A lot of you didn't realize in Philadelphia that you were being surveyed on how much you wear your mask and how you wear them. So Dr. Farley coming on to talk a little bit about that here on Reality Check, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WordRadio.com, Word TV, Word app. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
He knew. Donald Trump knew how deadly COVID was months ago, and he lied about it. Just listen.
Now it's turning out it's not just old people, Bob. Just today and yesterday, some startling facts came out. It's not just older young people, to plenty of young people.
Donald Trump knew as early as February just how deadly COVID was, before anyone even died, and he did nothing about it. His indifference cost tens of thousands of black lives.
It goes through air, Bob. You just breathe the air. That's how it's passed. It's also more deadly than even your strenuous flus.
Nearly 200,000 dead. 1 in 5 are black. This virus is literally killing us, and Trump did nothing to stop it.
Well, I think, Bob, really, to be honest with you, I wanted to always play it down. I still like playing it down because I don't want to create a panic.
Too late, Mr. President.
I'm Joe Biden, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Biden for president.
Hey, Word family. Our friends at Amoroso's Baking Company are hiring right now. Amoroso's has been baking the delicious bread in our community for over 100 years, and they want you to join their team today. The old and the young love Amoroso's, and they are hiring right now. Check it out. They offer fair pay and provide health, dental, and prescription plans after 90 days employment. Call 856-754-0355 or visit amorososbaking.com for details.
Be heard. Want another way to join the conversation?
Follow us on social media
Using the hashtag onWURD.
Be heard.
Stay connected to Word Radio.
Independent Black Media.
Keystone First VIP Choice HMO SNP Dual Eligible Special Needs Plan has a 4 out of 5 star rating and is one of the highest rated Medicare plans in the region. Keystone First VIP Choice and you are better together. If you live in Philadelphia, Bucks, Chester, Montgomery, or Delaware County, and you have both Medicare and Medicaid, choose the Medicare plan that is working to help you get better care. Enjoy extra benefits at no cost to you with Keystone First VIP Choice. You get benefits like dental, vision, and transportation to and from your medical appointments. They also cover a fitness membership to a gym of your choice, $150 toward over-the-counter pharmacy items. There's no copay for doctor's visits. They offer a large provider network, a great prescription plan, dental coverage, and even eyeglasses. Plus, you don't have to wait for open enrollment. You can change your coverage every quarter. Keystone First VIP Choice. The name you trust, the service you deserve. Call Keystone First VIP Choice today at 1-877-686-1760 or visit KeystoneFirstVIPChoice.com.
It's easier than ever to get the right health coverage for families of all sizes.
This is Bonnie, Ronnie, Tani, Johnny.
Penny gets you covered. Millennials, gig workers, virtual birthday partiers.
Grandma, you're on mute.
Penny gets you all covered. Penny helps you compare plans, get financial assistance, and purchase health insurance that fits your life. Get covered at PENNIE.com.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on Word Radio and WordRadio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check. Joining us now is Philadelphia Health Commissioner Dr. Thomas Farley. Joining us now to talk about a survey that they had recently conducted about mask wearing in the city of Philadelphia. Want to kind of get an update too on how things are going overall as far as COVID-19 cases, deaths, how we're getting through this. Dr. Farley, how are you doing, sir?
Good morning. How are you?
All right. Thanks for joining us. Always good to talk with you. So real quick, how are we doing in terms of overall cases, deaths, Commissioner? Do we worry about the potential for new surges as we're headed into the fall?
Well, good news is that our case counts and our percent of people tested that are positive is as low as it's been since the first week of this epidemic way back in March. So that's great to hear. However, we need to be careful because case rates are rising across the state, rising across the country, and they're rising a lot in Europe, showing that this virus certainly has the potential to come back. And so we're going to have to continue to take precautions seriously through the winter season.
Yeah. Before we get into the survey, Commissioner, because I'm real intrigued by that, I did want to ask you about testing and healthcare access. There are people still voicing concern that testing access in Philly is still an issue, particularly for low-income, vulnerable residents, access to hospitals, adequate medical care. I still keep hearing this as a major issue in the city. Are we, beyond the tracking the data, are we making sure that no one's continuing to complain about this?
You know, we are, there's two separate issues. One is around testing, the other is around healthcare access. Around testing, we're continuing to make progress. We're now about 60 different sites. Our website can tell you where they are and how you can get there. It's more accessible than it's ever been. It's a little bit complicated. You may need to call ahead and make an appointment. We're working on all of those to make it easier. As far as the regular healthcare system, we're pretty much back to where we were before the epidemic. And our healthcare system in this country is far from perfect. So we have access to healthcare, but we could stand to have that be better. But that's not an epidemic-related thing. That's just the structure of our system.
Yeah. Let's make sure we follow up on that. The last thing, I saw a recent viewpoint in the Journal of the American Medical Association, and they were saying that there are issues with nasal swab testing. That's the more popular method of testing for COVID, and they expressed concern about nasal swab testing, about false negatives, at community testing places, that the nasal swab testing is not being done correctly. Is that a problem or an issue in Philadelphia? Do we worry about that people are incorrectly applying nasal swab tests, and that maybe we have a lot of people walking around that may be positive, but they've been told that they're negative?
It's possible. We don't have data on that. The switching from the nasopharynx to the nasal testing is a relatively new thing, and people aren't testing in parallel, so we can't be sure. I can say in general, we know that there are people with infection who never get tested, and so that means that everybody needs to be taking precautions so that we don't spread the infection that you may not be aware of.
Yeah, no, we have to definitely look out for that. So this survey that you carried out, you did this with partners, the health department in conjunction with a number of other or nonprofit organizations. You were observing outdoor mask wearing habits of Philadelphians. And so what did you find? What did you find there that concerns you the most?
Well, first, just let me clarify that the health department is doing ongoing observations of people as they exit stores, looking at video security cameras. But what we announced last week was a survey done by independent researchers not connected to us at all. And they did surveys on the street and in parks across the city. So outdoor areas. They were doing another study where they were observing people to look at physical activity, and they just added information about mask use when they were at it. And so, be aware, it said that their data was mainly for people who are outdoors, and we think it's good for people who are wearing masks outdoors. It's even more important for them to be wearing it indoors. But what they found was that overall, on commercial streets, 72% of people were wearing masks at all, and 51% were wearing them correctly. And there were differences by age and race and sex. And so it says that everybody needs to be doing a little bit better on masks. Most people are doing the right thing most of the time, but we all need to boost our mask use and our correct mask use.
Mm-hmm. No, so you're saying most people are doing most things the correct time. I think at least from this private study, what was it? 70. How do we see here? We're saying 77% of persons observed on commercial streets, 56% of those observed in parks. I mean, that's still not. I mean, that's a majority, but it's not like everyone. I mean, we still have concern. And then there's we're finding that Asian Philadelphians or residents who identify as Asian Pacific Islander have the highest likelihood of wearing a mask properly at 63%, but Black and Latino residents in Philadelphia, the least likely to wear masks correctly. I think it's like at 35% each, respectively. Those numbers are still concerning there. Something's going on. I mean, is the message not getting through that people need to wear? How are you getting the message through that people need to wear their mask completely, not with the nose out, not like a chin strap, but they need to wear it correctly? I mean, we've been talking about this for months now.
And we're trying every channel we can to get the message out there, to encourage people to do that. We're also telling stores that need to require people when they come in to wear their masks and to wear them correctly. And it's we've gotten pretty far with this, but we need to get farther yet. If you have it around your chin, it doesn't do you any good because you don't breathe through your neck. You breathe through your nose and your mouth, and have it just over your mouth, and that's partial, but that's not going to be full protection. So I don't know what to do other than continue to get the message out and continue to, where we actually can mandate it, to really mandate it.
Yeah, I mean, if we mandate it, do we think that we may need to fine people, like fine them like, $50 tickets or something like that to maybe get the message through? Hey, listen, if we catch you not wearing your mask correctly, we're going to fine you like $50 or $100.
Yeah, I don't think that's something that we don't feel comfortable having the police do that, and I think you appreciate we don't want the police interacting with folks in that way. We don't really have a force of other city workers who are in enough numbers that they could go out there and have it make a difference. So we're still mainly going to depend on our encouraging people, and then when they are in an indoors environment where there's someone has control over that environment, requiring it there. And indoors is definitely more important than outdoors.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, there are other cities, right? Miami is fining people. I think they're fining people up to $500 if they don't wear masks. I mean, maybe you won't have to worry about having as many interactions with the public if, understanding that, hey, listen, this is dangerous. You not wearing your mask, it's not just dangerous for you, but it's dangerous for multiple people around you. So, I mean, is that a serious discussion that's taking place within City Hall?
We haven't considered that seriously, and I would be willing to bet that although these fines may exist in the books, that they're not really being invoked often enough to make a real difference in people's behavior.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You don't think so? You don't think that, like, if it would get around in Philly that, hey, listen, you may end up paying money for not wearing your mask properly. You don't think that that would send a message or a tone of urgency? Particularly, I don't know. I just worry about, like, I see these disparities in terms of especially the different demographic groups.
Right.
And trying to wonder, like, why is the message not? And I'm with you on this, Commissioner, because I mean, we say it very aggressively here regularly on this program. Like, please wear your mask completely. Don't do the half mask thing.
Yeah. I definitely really value this conversation and your messaging across the board. I think that that's the most important thing. Weather fines is another, additional benefit to that. I'm somewhat skeptical about. I'm open to people's suggestions on that, but it's not a simple thing to do. Certainly, most people are doing this because they think it's the right thing to do, and we want to encourage that and just continue to remind people that it's protecting yourself and your family members, everyone around you, if you do this. And it's really not that hard. I wear a mask. It's not that uncomfortable. You get used to it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you were telling me that the health department now, you all regularly, and just so people know, you all regularly are tracking how people are wearing their mask or how frequently they're doing it by watching videotape footage of people walking in and out of stores. What are you saying there? I'm real curious about that.
So overall, about 90% of people, as they're exiting a store, are wearing a mask at all. And it's probably about 80% that are wearing it correctly. So that's better than the number of people you see walking down the street. And that's an indicator of what they were probably doing when they were inside the store. I'm pleased we got to 90%. I would love to be at 100%. We just need to keep reinforcing that. And the numbers are rising over time, so we're definitely moving in the right direction.
Okay.
As we approach the winter season and people are indoors more and the risk of respiratory viruses increases, that's when we really need to max out on masks.
Yeah. Now, as far as outdoor mask wear, because people, I think, are under the assumption that, we're outdoors, there's more air circulation, so it's safer. And so, you do tend to get a little bit more lax on mask wearing. Like, you could be working out, you could be taking a run. Sometimes I have to, watch myself, as I'm out in, say, a park and I'm running on a trail, I have to make sure, okay, do I have my mask on, particularly if there are other people out in the park. Talk about how important outdoor mask wearing is, Commissioner.
Yeah, it definitely is. There's lower risk outdoors, no question about it, because there is more air circulation. But there is some risk if you're within 6 feet of another person. Droplets can just splash from one person to another. And so we recommend that if you're within 6 feet of somebody outdoors, that you ought to be wearing a mask. So if you're out there in the woods by yourself, great. You can take your mask off, no problem. But most of us, when we're walking down the street, are passing people pretty regularly. So it makes sense just to get used to when you're walking down the street to keep the mask on.
Mm-hmm. We've been talking with Philadelphia Health Commissioner, Dr. Tom Farley. Go to phila.gov/health for more information on your health department and kind of keeping track of what they're doing, and also how to access resources, information during this time of pandemic, because it's still on. Real quick, Health Commissioner, the flu shots and the flu season. Do we worry about, I know that there were concerns about a few weeks ago. People were saying, oh my gosh, we got to deal with both coronavirus and the flu. But how does that look now in terms of Philadelphia? How does that look now? Do we have concerns of a twindemic inside Philadelphia, or do you feel like people are at least paying attention to getting their flu shots?
Well, certainly the flu shots are here, and I would recommend everybody get their flu shot. Doesn't matter how old you are. Doesn't matter if you have underlying conditions. No matter how healthy you are, you should get a flu shot. And as to how hard the flu's going to hit us this year, it's anybody's guess. I can tell you in the southern hemisphere, they had a very light flu year, and probably that's because a lot of people were wearing masks. And I'm hopeful that the steps we're taking to prevent COVID will also prevent flu. But to be on the safe side, still, everybody should get vaccinated.
Yeah, exactly. That's an interesting point you just made too about a second ago. Wear your mask, not only do you protect yourself from pandemic, you protect yourself from the flu.
Yep,
so it's a good habit overall. Okay, excellent. No, I appreciate that.
If there's one other thing I could get on a mask,
sure.
We talked about you should wear the right sort of mask and wear it the right way. So we're saying a bandana these days is not good enough. It doesn't produce a good seal around your chin, so air droplets can go in and out. You want something that has a good seal across the bridge of your nose and under your chin, and you can, there's a lot of masks that'll do that, but buy one that's a real mask designed to protect people. Don't just use a bandana or something, or don't use one with a valve in it.
Don't use one. Don't use a mask with a valve in it. What do you mean by that? Mm-hmm.
But, there's some masks that are sold for construction where they have a valve in it, and what that's about is protecting you from dust if you're sanding or something like that. That may protect that, but it's not going to protect against the spread of COVID. The water droplets can still go in and out of that valve, and so don't use those masks for COVID.
Okay. No, that's good to know. So, just kind of stick to the surgical mask or the mask we're now seeing, like, that's kind of wrapped around your ears, just totally covers your face, doesn't have those valve holes in them or anything of that sort. Right. So we're just learning more and more. Thank you for that. No, that's that people need to know, and just appreciate this is very important knowledge. I appreciate that. Dr. Thomas Farley, Health Commissioner of the City of Philadelphia. Go to phila.gov/health. He's been joining us here on Reality Check. Thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it, Commissioner.
Okay. Thank you for the chance. All right, bye-bye.
All right, take care. All right, let's take a break. And when we come back on the other side, we're going to be talking with Barbara Kelly, Director of the Institutional Advancement for the Center for Aquatic Sciences, but also co-planner for the Delaware River Festival. So you're probably wondering, well, what are they going to do about that Delaware River Festival? It's an annual exercise by the Delaware River in places like Penn's Landing. Obviously, they're going to make it virtual, but how are they going to go about that? So we're going to talk with Barbara Kelly of the Delaware River Festival and talk about creative ways in which you can join in and celebrate, but also take care of a very important source of ecology and water for the city of Philadelphia. It's very important to keep that Delaware River safe and clean. So we're going to talk about that next in the upcoming EcoWord segment. We're actually doing all week EcoWord coverage. Well, we do that anyway on Reality Check, but we're doing more intentional EcoWord coverage here in partnership with Covering Climate Now, our national partner. We're one of the highlighted outlets for Covering Climate Now. It's a national environmental justice climate crisis journalism project. Go to coveringclimatenow.org for more there. Actually, go to ecoword.com. You'll see my latest piece about Black voters being the essential eco voters. So check that out at ecoword.com when you get a moment. Anyway, let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll be talking with Barbara Kelly about the Delaware River.
Support for WURD comes from the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society. You see them every day, in your house, in your neighborhood. They have been with you your whole life, providing comfort, reducing stress, cleaning your water. The plants and gardens around us have enormous impact in our lives. At PHS, we know a seed is more than a plant. Gardening is more than a hobby. That's why PHS invites you to join with them. Plant with purpose. Build healthier communities. Grow together. Learn more at phsonline.org/together.
WURD Radio presents the following wellness tip to support our listeners with mindfulness and motivation as we continue to navigate the pandemic together.
Hi, this is Helana, your resident health and wellness coach, with tips to help you stay well. Many of us have heard this term before, but may not know what it really means. Compassionate living brings mindfulness and peace to the center of your daily life. Compassionate living can look like this. Number 1, be gentle with yourself and those around you. Number 2, choose to speak kindly to others, even when you're upset. Number 3, become a good listener and practice empathy at home and at work. We sometimes think in order to live with compassion, we have to become someone else. Not so. In fact, allowing peacefulness to be at the center of our daily interactions is something we can practice every day. Go ahead and try it today. Stay well with WURD. Happy living.
Stay well with WURD. Connect with us at wordradio.com. Want the latest in WURD swag? Check out the shop tab on wordradio.com. Hoodies, tees, and more in a variety of colors. The shop tab on wordradio.com. Show the world that you're all about black. Talk Media. Home of the Happy Hour. With Sincerely Sarita. This is WURD Radio. 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Streaming live at wordradio.com and on the WURD Radio app. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and wordradio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check. We're joined now by Barbara Kelly. She's a co-planner for the Delaware River Festival. Normally, she's director of institutional advancement for the Center for Aquatic Sciences, and she's active in the Alliance for Watershed Education. serving as the co-leader of the River Days work group and serving on the development work group. We're joining us here for an onWURD segment to talk about the upcoming Delaware River Festival that's taking place. Go to DelawareRiverFest.org for more information. And during this time of pandemic, find out creative ways in which you can celebrate, but also find out how you can take care of, how you can promote, advance, push for better stewardship of our great Delaware River. Barbara joining us by phone here on our onWURD segment. Barbara, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
All right. Yeah, thanks for joining us. We appreciate your time here. So what's exactly the Delaware River Festival, right? You know, some of us know it. You know, we hear about it from time to time. Some of us have participated in that. But describe it for people who may not know and why it's so important to celebrate it.
So the Delaware River Festival is a partnership of a bunch of organizations, actually, including the Partnership for the Delaware Estuary, the Independent Seaport Museum, Camden County, and their park system, as well as the Center for Aquatic Sciences and the Alliance for Watershed Education, kind of all coming together to really highlight the importance of the Delaware River and the changes that have been made in the last 70 years or so. The Delaware River is healthier than it has been for generations, and we need to celebrate that and also understand the importance of the advancement we've made in healthiness and make sure that we continue to move toward, you know, fishable, swimmable, recreational, enjoyable, clean water.
Yeah, that's right. Talk about, too, why the Delaware River is important, because I don't think people understand, you know, we grew up next to it or near it. It's a permanent fixture in Philadelphia life, but I don't think people really appreciate it, right? And why should people appreciate the Delaware River? Why is it? Because people may say, well, it's just a body of water. No, it's more than just a body of water. It's something that's very important to quality of life in Philadelphia. And so talk a bit about why, you know, that's why we have a Delaware River Festival, because people need to know that this is a very critical permanent fixture, a very permanent piece of life, not just the environment, but also people's everyday quality of life. And so explain that, why that's important.
It really is. I mean, on the people level, over 13 million people depend on the Delaware River watershed for clean drinking water. Philadelphia, wow. Camden, New Jersey, our drinking water is coming from that river. So, you know, on the people side, it's really critical, if for no other reason than clean drinking water. However, right. It's really important for the animals. Last week was the high for bird migration in Philadelphia. September 14th, there were 53,000 birds migrating over Philadelphia that night, and they stop at places like John Hines at Tennicum and other places to feed and, you know, continue on their migration route. And it's important that the Delaware and the surrounding waterways are clean and healthy for them. Also for fish, we've seen increases in a lot of fish population as the pollution has gone down. The fish have come back.
Okay.
So yeah, if you want to go out,
that's good. That's good to hear. Yeah.
It's obviously it's a very important river, and you know, even for people who didn't necessarily grow up right at the Delaware River, you probably have a creek, a stream, something near you, and right. that goes into another bigger one that goes into a bigger one that eventually makes its way to the Delaware River. So they're all interconnected, and you know, it's important to understand that connection and to understand that little tiny creek in your neighborhood feeds into the Delaware River. So what happens in that creek makes a difference in what happens in the Delaware River.
Yeah. There are still stressors, however, on the Delaware River, you know, because, I mean, it's a massive population. You got 13 million people along the Delaware River relying on it as a source of drinking water. But then the stressors, I mean, there are like industries and pollution stressors that we still have to worry about with respect to the Delaware River, correct?
Sure. There's things like stormwater runoff. So, again, if you think about, I don't know, the oil spot on your driveway when it rains, you know, that's going to run into the ground or into that creek near your house, which, again, is going to run into a bigger creek or a stream, which is going to run into a river. There's also the importance of thinking about, as you mentioned, a lot of people grew up near the river, but they didn't necessarily have access to it. So making sure that there's public open space and access to the waterways. And then, obviously, habitat loss for all those animals that rely on the river. We need to make sure that we're constantly thinking about them as well.
Hey, real quick, too, Brooke, thank you for this discussion, too, because I think it's important. People need to know, like, how important that river is. Did we notice anything sort of unusual or different in terms of the river's health, how the river was accessed and used during pandemic? You know, for example, like, especially those first few months of lockdowns, of shutdowns in the early months of the pandemic, people were saying, hey, you know what, the air is noticeably clearer, maybe cleaner because there's less commuting going on. Did we find the same as far as the Delaware River in terms of usage and impacts?
I honestly am not sure. I know that, you know, our work in the Alliance for Watershed Education has really been to encourage people that, you know, these open spaces are a great way to get out during the pandemic. When you talk about social distancing and, you know, staying with your family, you know, open parks, open areas are a great way to take advantage of being out in that cleaner air, being out in the sunshine and getting out. So, you know, it's our hope that as people are trying to find ways to you know, do activities and recreate, that they begin to think about some of those places as usable spaces and ways they can enjoy nature and get back to nature.
We're talking with Barbara Kelly. She's active with the Alliance for Watershed Education. She serves as the co-lead of the River Days work group, serves on the development work group. She's also a co-planner for the Delaware River Festival. Go to DelawareRiverFest.org for more information on what that's about and how you can get involved, as well what activities you can get involved in, because this is virtual this year, right, Barbara? So how are you doing this virtually this year? It's much different because of pandemic. So how are you going to do it virtually while still maintaining awareness around the Delaware River, also encouraging people to see it, to interact with it, and be better stewards of it?
So we are offering a handful of small in-person events during the week. So the Delaware River Festival will start on September 26th and run through Sunday, October 4th. And during that time, there are a handful of in-person events, but you're right, the majority of them are virtual. However, they have the ability to still encourage people and show people ways that they can get out and do things in nature. So we have scavenger hunts, ones that you can kind of like print at home and take out with you. We have virtual apps that we're using that allow people to go out and kind of, you know, explore the area and find nature in their neighborhood. We also have a variety of partners that are working with us on everything from you know, storybook readings about rivers and you know, the fun that you can have on rivers, all the way up to like panel discussions on sharing the Delaware and how, you know, the Delaware is a port that has a lot of industry flowing through it, as well as boaters and fishermen and anglers, and kind of how they all can work together to ensure that the Delaware River does stay safe for everyone. So there's a little bit of, I think, everything for everyone. There's 58 events between the in-person and the virtual listed on the Delaware River.
Wow, 58 events. Okay.
Festival site. So, there should be something there for everyone.
Excellent. You know, when we talk about something there for everyone, you know, it's real important because you hinted at that earlier about the accessibility of the Delaware River, making sure that there's an equity prism to these conversations to you know, to ensure, because you know, Philadelphia being Philadelphia, and it's a special city, but it's also a very distressed city. And so I'm assuming like a lot of this planning into the festival being more intentional and deliberate around making sure that the city's low-income residents are more aware of it or have opportunities, low-income, vulnerable kids, particularly young. That's been a big discussion during this time of pandemic. A lot of low-income, vulnerable kids having access to things like broadband. Okay, well, we also want to make sure that they have access to these kinds of special eco-activism activities. Are we more intentional and deliberate about this with this Delaware River Fest?
We are. Both the Delaware River Fest and then the River Days programming at large are being very intentional this year. The Alliance for Watershed Education takes that topic very seriously, and we have reached out to local schools to make sure that they're aware of the festival programming. All of the festival programming is free.
For the Delaware River Festival, we're not only streaming it on like social media, but also on YouTube, which is, you know, a highly accessible medium that doesn't require any, you know, registration or anything like that, and they'll live there. So, you know, if somebody can't see something live at that time, they'll be able to go back and visit it later. So, you know, the hope is that it creates an entire library of accessible information for anybody and everybody who's interested in it.
Now, been going through pandemic, you know, obviously, you know, people feel rather still constrained, you know, as far as where they can go, what they can do, but has this time kind of presented you in the work that you do, has it made you think of things differently in terms of how you approach this issue, in terms of how you go about engaging in activities like this or sharing this type of information and awareness with the larger greater Philly area in the Delaware Valley?
Oh, absolutely. Again, the shift from, you know, being able to do in-person events to being able, you know, kind of having to rely on virtual events means that, you know, it puts a difficulty on the hands-on approach. You can't meet with people at the water's edge. So you need to really think critically about how you can still be engaging, how you can still get the information across, but doing it in a virtual world. And I think the Alliance as a whole, the River Days events are basically, it's a month-long celebration of the Delaware River and all of the tributaries of it that flow into the Delaware River. So the Schuylkill, on the Camden side, the Cooper River, et cetera. And all of the 23 centers are doing something this year. And the great majority of them are kind of switching to a virtual world, but it doesn't mean that it's any less fun or any less engaging. It's just being done in kind of a new way.
Oh, how much do we worry about, Barbara, flooding? Because, you know, I've seen some troubling data with how severe flooding could get in Philadelphia over the next, say, like 30 years, 20 to 30 years, right? You know, with rising sea levels, climate crisis. And so now, how much do we worry about that, you know, how the Delaware River plays a role in that, how it potentially, you know, contributes to that, and then how that influences the kind of relationship that we as Philadelphians, as Philadelphia residents have with that river. You know, on one hand, it's a source of drinking water, you want to protect it, but on the other hand, it can become a rather problematic neighbor as sea levels rise and as there's more and more flooding. And frankly, I mean, that impacts a lot of those vulnerable Black and brown populations living below sea level. So, you know, how much do we worry about that?
Well, yes, obviously, worry about it greatly. I think, I think, you know, for the Alliance and its partners, it's about education and making sure that all of the communities understand that is an issue and that it is something that they need to think about, and they need to, you know, make sure that their voice is heard in discussions around it. You know, flooding is going to become a bigger and bigger problem. The Delaware River is the largest undammed river west of the east of the Mississippi. So, you know, it's going to be vulnerable to climate change, sea level rise, et cetera. And we do need to make sure that when those conversations happen, that all voices are heard and that everybody is at the table having those conversations. And I think one of the best ways to do that is to get people to understand the river and to understand its importance, not only, you know, at a higher level, bald eagles and, you know, habitat loss and things like that, but really how does it affect them in their neighborhood and what can they do and how can they have a voice? And so, you know, events like this offer an understanding of the importance of the river, and from that comes the desire to protect it, to understand it, and to, you know, move forward with trying to make sure that it's something that, does live side by side with these communities and doesn't flood them.
Yeah, yeah. I really see an opportunity here with the Delaware River Festival, and once again, people can go to DelawareRiverFest.org. I highly recommend it, and I highly recommend also encouraging your young people in your household, to either tap into this virtually at DelawareRiverFest.org. These activities are for the most part free, and there are also carefully scheduled, carefully facilitated, socially distanced activities, physical on-site activities that are being presented here at the Delaware River Festival. Go to DelawareRiverFest.org and look at the schedule of events. But Barbara, I see an opportunity here for kind of a long game of more expansive, comprehensive eco-literacy, particularly for Philadelphia's young people, Philadelphia students, Philadelphia public school students. That's something I've always been interested in and concerned about, is like, how you have, like, there's that big push for making sure you have civic literacy and making sure you have math and science and basic reading literacy. We really need like comprehensive kind of mandated eco-literacy or eco-education for young people in a place like Philadelphia, don't we? And this would be a good place to start.
Absolutely. And I think, again, the Alliance for Watershed Education is starting. One of the other programs they do besides these month-long celebration of the river called River Days is they have a fellows program, and they take college-age students from the area surrounding the 20, each of the 23 centers, and work with them to become stewards of the river. And they go out into their neighborhoods and do programming and do activities that, again, try to highlight this importance. So I think it needs to be a multi-generational approach. And, for so many generations, it has been kind of a stay away from the river. It's polluted. It's dangerous. You don't approach it. And really starting at the lower generations builds that love of the river again, and the understanding of its importance.
No, that's very important, and hopefully that's something we'll continue to talk about too in the future. We'd love to have those future conversations with you. Keep us posted. Barbara Kelly is co-planner for the Delaware River Festival, and go to DelawareRiverFest.org and learn more about it. Participate in it, DelawareRiverFest.org. She's also Director of Institutional Advancement for the Center for Aquatic Sciences. And what is that? What is the Center for Aquatic Sciences? Real quick, Barbara, I was just curious.
Sure. We are a nonprofit. We're actually located over in Camden, so I'm waving across the Delaware River at you. And our mission is really education and youth development through promoting the understanding, appreciation, and protection of aquatic life and habitat. All right.
Center for Aquatic Sciences, yeah, definitely got a great aquatic museum, aquatic facility, aquatic sciences facility over there in Camden. But DelawareRiverFest.org for more there. Part of a partnership. The Alliance for Watershed Education, putting that together. Barbara Kelly is a co-lead of the River Days work group and making the DelawareRiverFest.org, Delaware River Festival, possible. Barbara, thanks for your work. Really appreciate this. Thanks for your time this morning.
Great. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care. Okay. Yeah, check that out, DelawareRiverFest.org. Make sure your young people are going there. If you're online, go online. It is a thing to do. In fact, I would go so far as to integrate it into, I've told my 15-year-old about it, like, yo, check this out, see if you can get involved in some things, or make it a part of kind of their routine, their current daily educational routine. Seriously, we need eco-literacy more. We need our young people to understand and appreciate the space that they're in. Particularly Black young people, we need to understand and learn how to be stewards of, protectors of the space that we're in, and also our little animal neighbors, taking care of them, being good to them, so we can maintain that ecological balance. That all contributes to quality of life, particularly in a place like Philadelphia. You may not think it does, especially if you live in certain areas of Philadelphia, you're thinking, well, that has nothing to do with me. No, it has a whole lot to do with you. Keeping that space preserved and intact, as healthy as possible. That also helps keep it safe. People talking about safety and issues like violence, rising violence in the city. I'm telling you, the more you keep that environment safe, the more you keep that environment clean, it actually increases the chances of your neighborhoods being safe. So you can laugh at me all you want on that, but the science is like like dead-eyed like proof on that. Like there's plenty of studies on this. So that eco-literacy and just making sure people are living more healthy and well, particularly in a place that's as air stressed and water stressed as land stressed as Philadelphia. So activities like these are just so important. That's why we present this kind of conversation, this kind of information to you through our EcoWord, our ongoing EcoWord series, ecoword.com. Check out my latest analysis about Black voters being the eco voters that climate activists are looking for. So you should check it out, ecoword.com, and read about it. And we'll talk about it here a little bit on this program. Let me take a break. Becky Monroe with the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights is going to come on and talk about the nomination of the Secretary of Homeland Security. So that's a big important issue, especially concerning what's going on right now in D.C. and beyond. But Becky Monroe wanted to talk about, we got her at the last minute to talk about that's some actually developing breaking news in Washington on Capitol Hill. The U.S. Senate Committee on Homeland Security, Governmental Affairs is about to consider and more than likely approve the nomination of Chad Wolf as Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, and why we should all be very troubled by that. All right, let's take a break, and we'll be right back here on Reality Check.
Holistic health information every weekend with Dr. Paul. Saturdays during the Holistic Hour at 9 a.m. and Sundays during the Green Hour at 3 p.m. right here on WURD 96.1 FM and 900 AM. Streaming live at wordradio.com and on the Word Radio app.
Just one more step. You got it.
You're doing great. This is the sound of a nationally ranked top rehabilitation hospital, home to the largest collection of robotics in the United States, where we continually exceed patient expectations, because no injury is too severe or too minor for our care.
There you go.
This is the sound of success. Moss Rehab. Challenge accepted.
No fear, just facts. This is WURD, independent Black media.
Word Radio presents the following information to help you navigate the up-and-coming election. Still concerned about COVID-19 and voting in person? Pennsylvania has you covered with mail-in ballots. Simply submit a completed ballot by mail. So long as you request that mail-in ballot between now and October 27th, go to votespa.com and apply for your mail-in ballot today. When your ballot arrives, read it carefully and follow the instructions to complete it and return it. You can also track and confirm that your County Board of Elections has received the mail-in ballot by going to votespa.com. For more information on how to vote in Pennsylvania, visit states.aarp.org/Pennsylvania. Vote early. Word Radio presents the following information to help you navigate the up-and-coming election. Stay informed and vote. For more from Charles Ellison, tune in Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. or visit wordradio.com.
We've all adjusted our daily routines in these unprecedented times. And for many of us, voting at our polling place in November is a routine that means so much. But did you know that every Pennsylvania voter can vote by mail from home this year? Whether you're a Pennsylvania senior, essential worker, or simply someone who needs more flexibility to vote within a challenging schedule, voting by mail allows you to make your voice heard at the ballot box on your schedule while protecting your family's health. You can turn your mailbox into a ballot box by simply visiting votespa.com on your computer or any mobile device to request your mail-in ballot. With November 3rd around the corner, it's more important than ever to request your mail-in ballot today. It's simple, secure, convenient, and safe. This year, you shouldn't have to choose between your vote and your health. We're all in this together, and voting by mail gives you the power to make your voice heard. So sign up at votespa.com or return your mail-in ballot application to your county election office today. Paid for by Power Interfaith.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on Word Radio and wordradio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, wordradio.com, Word TV, Word app. We are now joined, we'll come back here. We had her on before quite a while back. It's good to have her back. Becky Monroe, she is with the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights. Go to civilrights.org for more information. She's director of the Fighting Hate and Bias and Immigrant Rights Program at the Leadership Conference. Here to talk about the impending nomination of Chad Wolf as Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. That's a problem. That's real troubling. Becky here to talk about that. Becky, how are you doing? Becky, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Okay, there you go. I can hear you. Definitely.
Yeah.
What's taking place? Oh no, it's good to have you back. I appreciate it. So what's happening? So Senate Committee on Homeland Security, Governmental Affairs, considering the nomination of Chad Wolf. We expect this to be a rubber stamp in terms of Senate Republican majority. This would be the new Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. Why does this worry you about Chad Wolf? And this comes at a time when we're getting more and more details, very grisly, horrific details about this detention center in Georgia, this ICE detention center, which ICE is under the Department of Homeland Security, and about these forced hysterectomies on Black and Latino migrant women there. So Chad Wolf, he's overseen some of that, or he's kind of involved in the decision-making process with respect to some of these activities, correct?
That's absolutely right. He has been serving, and I will point out, we believe illegally serving as acting secretary because they violated all of the requisite procedures for him to be sort of playing in that role as acting Secretary of Homeland Security. It violated something that's called the Federal Vacancies Reform Act. I point that out not because that's particularly, that point will upset people, but I think it is particularly relevant because he has overseen the blatant disregard for civil and human rights throughout his tenure. And I think if you point to, just like you mentioned, the whistleblower allegations that came out last week, the very brave nurse who came forward, African-American nurse who came forward and blew the whistle on immigrant women who were in detention, who were receiving hysterectomies without their full consent. So, that's one example. This is the same man who played a key role in implementing family separation procedures. It is. I know it feels like because there are so many tragedies that are happening every day, but I think it is not that long ago that it was front and center in the news. DHS policies ripping thousands of young immigrant children away from their parents. That's something we should not forget. And I think something that I also wanted to focus on that we are particularly focused on here at the Leadership Conference is intelligence reports that came out last week. There was another whistleblower report that came out last week about DHS's efforts, including Wolf, to minimize intelligence reports about the true threat of white nationalists to our national security. So there's just a whole host of things that are deeply troubling about this person being put in any leadership position, much less Secretary of Homeland Security.
We're getting some news too. This is kind of developing news out of Washington as well. Chad Wolf's wife receiving a contract from the Department of Home. She runs a firm that received a $6 million contract from the Department of Homeland Security. So I'm like, I mean, I'm sorry to have to laugh, but I'm just like, you can't write this. Like, you can't make this up, right? That would be something right there. That would be a red enough flag to just not consider anything. Just, let's just take this nomination off the table. Like, do we really need to go to committee for this?
Right. I mean, I think you're absolutely right. I think that's what's so. I think that's what's so challenging for people like you and for people like me who are trying to make sure we are staying on top of every violation of every sort of civil rights priority that this administration is violating. It's coming so quickly at us because there are so many violations. I mean, another thing that we're not even talking about is that it was Wolf who personally ordered DHS agents who were in unmarked uniforms to Portland, where they started taking civilians off the street who were protesting, anti-racist protesters. So I think there's just, there is so much that, as you said, in any sort of other world, we would say this would be enough to take this off. This nomination should not even be considered. And yet we are sort of seeing this sort of tsunami of reasons why he is not only is he unprepared, is he not up to the job, he has demonstrated time and time again a record of violating civil and human rights. And that record alone should be sufficient to make him ineligible for this role.
Yeah. I mean, that of course, exactly. So, how much does it? Let's talk about this, Becky. And I've kind of gone back and forth in this before, right? What the sort of lack of concern, the lack of empathy, particularly on the Senate side, for what's happening on the human rights front and what's happening on the human rights front domestically. We're not talking about things that are happening in far off foreign countries, like places like, I don't know, like China, for example. I mean, some serious human rights violations there. We're talking, I mean, forced hysterectomies. I mean, that's just something coming straight out of not just a horror film, but out of like a Hulu series. You know, people think, oh, this is just stuff we watch on Netflix or Hulu, Handmaid's Tale type stuff. No, this is actually going on like right now as we speak on U.S. soil in a place called Georgia.
That's exactly right. I mean, I think that's, I mean, to your point, this is not, and I think this is why it really does demand all of us to sort of wake up and pay attention, because this is being done in our name as well. This is in our country, in our name. So Irwin Detention Center, where these hysterectomies were performed without informed consent by the women who were subject to them. This is happening in our country and in our name. And I think you're right. That demands a sense of sort of outrage, but also action. I think one of the things that this also brings to the fore, and I think we are all thinking about this, is and I know that people keep hearing it, they're saying, well, okay, I hear you. Voting, registering is more critical than ever. We cannot have another 4 years administration. It is the norm that has directed human rights violations as the head of one of the most sort of far-reaching and important agencies in the country. So I think, to your point, these are things that we all need to be paying attention to. They are hard to focus on. They are hard to watch. But it is critical that we do pay attention, that we focus on this, and that we kind of reclaim our country. And I think to your point, you know, in Irwin, if you look at who's being targeted, Black immigrants, it's Latina immigrants, these are the people that make our country stronger, that make our country better, and I think we need to make sure that we are speaking up and are focusing our attention and our actions where it can be. So I think, again, if anyone needed a reminder about why this election is so critical, we have another one today. With this.
Yeah, no, it is so critical. Because you know, one of the things that WURD was involved in that concerns you, Becky, concerns Leadership Conference and a lot of the other partners and people who are watching, paying close attention, is how he was amending or minimizing intelligence reports about white nationalist activity in the countries.
Yes.
Talk about how concerned you are about, because we've been seeing a lot of white nationalist activities, infiltration. Let's not even get started on very methodical white nationalist infiltration of law enforcement agencies, state, local police departments, even federal level as well, and how that's erupting. But how concerned are you, especially as we get closer to the election, and the things that this administration might do to stay in power? How concerned are we about how they're using or how they might use white nationalists towards those means?
We are deeply concerned, and I think that's why to your point, we want to call a lot of attention to, for example, what you talked about last week. There was a whistleblower coming out of DHS who specifically spoke in his whistleblower report to being directed by people like the nominee Wolf to minimize the threat assessments that they were getting about white nationalists, to change language so that it didn't because it was politically harmful to the president. What's important about this is just a political game. These are people's lives. As you point out, white nationalists kill people and they harm communities. And so when we talk about sort of why it's important to note that these reports are being changed and that the language is being changed. I mean, the other thing that came out last week also, Politico released 3 versions of the same intelligence report. They kept changing the language so that it minimized the role of white nationalists. We think this is important, you know, for the reasons you talked about. It is clearly a national security risk. It is something that the FBI as well as DHS must acknowledge and has acknowledged as a real risk. And minimizing it really puts people in harm's way. And so I think we are, we are grateful. You know, another thing, if you look last week, on the House side, the chairman of House Homeland Security, Chairman Thompson, tried to bring Wolf before his committee to talk about what's going on here with these whistleblower reports. And, you know, yet again, this administration has shown a complete disrespect for separation of powers and for the way the government works. He defied a subpoena. So I think we're seeing time and time again an effort to cover this up. and this is not just this doesn't have just political ramifications. White nationalists and white supremacists are a real threat, and ignoring it and covering it up puts people's lives at risk.
Hey, Becky, what do we know? It sounds like there's some real tension inside the Department of Homeland Security. Like, you know, you have like a cabal of sorts, a mafia of alt-right, white nationalists leaning Trump loyalists that are in there, that are coming into an agency like DHS, but then you have like maybe career civil servants, bureaucrats who are there in DHS, and they're trying to hold the line. You know, like this whistleblower who made it, who was also, you know, or other whistleblowers who were letting us know that, hey, you know, these intelligence reports have been amended. You know, also, you know, they're showing how Chad Wolf, he was the one who was ordering these DHS agents to, you know, go around in unmarked uniforms and vehicles and apprehend civilians off the streets. So is there like some real, do you have information on, or are we getting indications of like a real kind of intense struggle internally within the DHS, the likes of which we're not seeing in these news headlines?
Yeah, I think what you're pointing to is something that is important to note, not only with respect to DHS, but even if you look at DOJ. I mean, one of the things, so I was proud to serve in the Obama administration for 7.5 of those 8 years. We were by no means perfect, but one of the reasons that I was so proud to serve there was the opportunity. I was an appointee, but I was the opportunity to work with career civil servants who have dedicated their careers to serving their country. And for example, at the Department of Justice, you know, one of the things we talked about this week, so in addition to DHS defying congressional subpoenas, the head of the Civil Rights Division was supposed to testify this week and said he wasn't going to show up. And I think one of the things we want to point out when that happens is, here's a political appointee who's not showing up, who is in charge of the Civil Rights Division that is supposed to sort of that is charged with protecting our civil rights. We know that there are career attorneys, career paralegals, career investigators who are working within the Civil Rights Division who have stayed out of a dedication to civil rights, out of a dedication and a desire to sort of protect what they can of that agency. And so I think, to your point, especially as we come closer to an election, it's really important to respect and recognize the work that people are doing who are career officials, who are not politically affiliated, who are just trying to fulfill their obligations, and who are committed to the civil rights statutes, for example, in the context of the Civil Rights Division, and to enforcing those. So I think, you know, I know from personal experience, I was really fortunate to work. Those are some of the most brilliant, dedicated attorneys, paralegals, staff members that you will see who are doing this work because they believe in civil rights, for example. And so the fact that you have people who are still trying to sort of hold this up and doing whatever they can to advance those principles, I think something for us to remember. And I think that's something for us to remember, and potentially to give us a little bit of a glimmer of hope as we come and approach this election. Remember, there are people who will fight for civil rights, and if we can, you know, see the kind of change we need to see with this next election, people who will fight and to reclaim and to make sure that we are pushing, and that our country and our government once again represents all of us, as opposed to right now representing a very few who are actively, you know, violating civil and human rights.
Yeah. We've been talking with Becky. Becky's always good to talk with you. Becky Monroe, Director of the Fighting Hate and Bias and Immigrant Rights Program at the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, and also with the Leadership Conference Education Fund. We've been talking about issues within the Department of Homeland Security, some big changes going on there. Senate about to rubber stamp a nomination for Secretary of the Department, which is real interesting, and on the eve of the election, right, Becky? So we didn't even go deeply into that, like what that might mean, and the role or how DHS might be used to you know, somehow mar the election results. I just wonder about this. So it's something we have to look very closely at. I appreciate your time this morning. So we'll talk to you again. We'll keep in touch with you. Thanks so much, Becky.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
All right. Take care. Go to civilrights.org for more information on the Leadership Conference, also how you can get involved and how you can support that effort. So doing the work there in Washington, D.C. All right. Let's take a break. And when we come back, open phone lines. Phone lines are open. 215-634-8065. Toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. 215-634-8065. Toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Phone lines are open. They'll be open into the noon hour as well. So we're going to open up the phone lines, see what's on your mind. 215-634-8065. Toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let's take a break and we'll be right back.
Livelihood, the new initiative from WURD Radio, connecting Philadelphians to jobs, entrepreneurship opportunities, small business resources, and financial literacy. Visit WURDworks.com right now and take the next step in your professional journey. Livelihood is supported by the Nightland Fest's Local News Transformation Fund, Borealis Philanthropies Racial Equity and Journalism Fund, and the Solutions Journalism Network.
I'm Joe Biden, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
But they've got the experience. I'm still in shock 3 or 4 years later that we're in this position now. Our democracy is at a pivotal point. From the top, we don't trust our government. We see the trouble we're in economically. We've got 170,000 Americans dead, and yet this president will do anything he can to make it seem like things are better than they are.
I did more for the black community than anybody with the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln.
It's our responsibility. If we don't lead that effort to make things better, we can't ask other people to do it. There is no good reason not to vote.
Right, we need to have individuals that are in office like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
They are our best shot to take us forward.
And that's what makes me incredibly hopeful, but we really do have to work for this thing.
To the thousands who did not vote, we need you to show up for our future and for our country.
You cannot sit on the sidelines. You got to get in the game.
Paid for by Biden for president.
Support independent black media and join the onWURD movement now at 215-425-7875 or visit wordradio.com.
Listen to Laborers Live.
We created the weekend. We created the 40-hour work week. We just want enough to feed our family, be able to send our children to college, and let our next generation do better than we did.
To people that might have forgot how important unionism is in a country like the United States. People now infringing on our 8-hour workday, trying to work people more than 8 hours without overtime, trying to work people without benefits. In the long run, everybody's getting a fat paycheck except the worker. So this is really a wake-up call for America.
The struggle is continuous. Tune in to Laborers Live every Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. Sponsored by LESIT, the Laborers Employers Cooperation Education Trust of the Laborers District Council of Philadelphia and vicinity.
Local 332, Sam Staten Jr. Business Manager. Local 57, Esteban Vera Business Manager. Local 135, Dan Woodall Jr. Business Manager. Local 413, James Harper Jr. Business Manager. The Laborers District Council, Ryan Boyer Business Manager, and Tony Staten, Executive Director of LESIT.
The WURD Radio Newsletter, keeping you informed, engaged, and connected. Sign up by visiting wordradio.com. Scroll to the bottom of the page and type your email address under Connect with Us. You'll receive the latest information on WURD Radio, messages from our president and CEO, Sarah Lomax Reese, exclusive articles and multimedia content, and resources. Stay informed with the WURD Radio Newsletter. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and wordradio.com.
Okay, welcome back to Reality Check here on the home of Black Talk Media, WURD. It's 96.1 FM, 900 AM, wordradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. Phone lines are open. Phone lines are open at 215-634-8065. Toll free, it is 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. 215-634-8065. Toll free, it is 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Also, you can leave your comments, leave your questions in the WURD TV live stream, the WURD TV live stream at Facebook Live, facebook.com/4word. Good Wednesday, good almost afternoon to folks. Kendrick Talbot, good Wednesday morning, WURD family. Good morning to you, Kenrick Talbot, excuse me. Malcolm White watching and listening from West Mount Airy. Malcolm, was good? All right, thank you. Lois Rubin Marks, good morning to you. Good morning to you. Candy Jordan, good Wednesday morning. Blessings, brothers and sisters. One love. Yes, one love always. Peace, good morning to you. Joey Dixon, and yes, vote and jazz to you. That's right, vote. Please continue to vote. Jeanette Miller, good morning. Have a blessed day. Back at you. Good morning to you, Raphael Suleiman. Shalata C.A. Sankofa, good morning to you too. Sister and Gloria Gainey, good morning. Marla Campbell Harris, good morning. Charles and my word family, checking in from WOL in Washington, D.C. We appreciate that. So thank you. The great WOL. That's black radio station, black owned radio. Well, it's like the original, one of the original black owned radio stations in Washington, D.C. So good morning to you. Thanks for listening from Washington. Appreciate that. Raphael Suleiman. Remember the movie Children of Men? Yes, I do remember that movie. I watch a lot of those movies. I'm a big sci-fi geek. So yeah, it was a very interesting movie. I liked it cinematically, but it's just like, it was, yeah, right, Raphael, was some real troubling themes in that movie. But remember the movie, I would recommend checking out The Children of Men or Children of Men, and so Raphael Suleiman says here, in which the natural childbirth of the world stopped for a long period of time. Those same tactics may be used to halt the reproductive viability of low-income blacks and Latinos in this country. Eugenics was a big deal in America before World War II. That is something we got to take a close look at. It's something we have to, yes. And when you watch Children of Men, which is kind of set in the distant future, and it's at a point where people stop having kids. And so it's set in England and Britain, and it's very dystopic. But it's a good, I think Clive Owen, right? Clive Owen is the lead actor in that. It's a British film. I highly recommend if you want a good kind of thinking person's sci-fi action film. Highly recommend Children of Men. Thank you for that, Raphael. 215-634-8065, toll free. It is 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. We have our phone lines open right now. 215-634-8065, toll free. 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Also looking at the violent crime rate in the city of Philadelphia, just something people need to talk about. I know we have an election going on, but you know what? Democrats really need to talk about more, or touch base more with folks about public safety issues, violent crime rates that are happening in a lot of major cities and in battleground states that that they're relying on to win in not just the presidential election, but also in Senate races and also in state legislative races as well. And people want to know, like, okay, what are you guys going to do about this? 35% now, went from 34% yesterday to now homicides being 35% above where they were this time last year. So have not seen it go below 30% for quite a long time. When we look at the current crime statistics that are being provided by the Philadelphia Police Department, so Philly is still in a crisis. It's in a state of emergency with respect to its high violence rate, particularly gun violence, 35%. So it was 34%. Remember, yesterday it's been 34% it was like 33, 34% for a long time. Notice we haven't said, it's been a long time since we saw it at like 20% above, and which was already alarming. Have not seen it go ever at all this time in 2020. I have not seen it go below 10%. Higher than where it was in 2019. So at this time in 2019, it was about 249 homicides at the same time last year, as of September 22nd, 2019. Now it's 335 people have been murdered in the city of Philadelphia thus far in 2020. And we should be concerned, and just, we need to talk about it and kind of figure that out. Folks obviously in City Hall haven't figured it out at all. And maybe we'll hear something different. We'll hear a different tone. We have City Council Live tomorrow. And maybe we'll hear something different. Maybe some new pivot coming out of City Council, some new idea. Something a tone that strikes a little bit more urgency and a little less congratulating and name dropping, backslapping. Like, I'm being serious. Like, really, kind of, read the room. That should be like, I saw somebody on Twitter who was half joking about that. They were like, "That's the podcast. Like, read the room." You know, there's a lot of elected officials not reading the room. Like, read the public room, y'all. Like, and read kind of the pain people are going through. They don't want to hear the name dropping and the backslapping and, oh, hey, you know, my friend and colleague just passed such and such, or they're working on this. They don't want to hear that. They just want to hear, like, are y'all getting stuff done? What are the metrics? Okay, we're 35% above where we were in terms of homicides last year. How can we get 35% below the number of homicides that occurred at this time in 2019? People want to see those metrics. We have this amount of poverty, this amount of people in poverty in Philadelphia, X thousands of people in poverty in Philadelphia. Now we want that number down to here, like in, say, a month's time. Like, I mean, maybe we need like some big kind of graphic indicator of like, okay, this is how we're tackling each of these issues head on. That is not being done with respect to the violence. I don't know what the city of Philadelphia is doing with respect to the violence rate. It's concerning. It's concerning for me. It's a bit embarrassing for me because like that name, when I'm talking to people from other places and other cities and they're watching what's going on in Philly, and that name Philadelphia is starting to come up, and I hate that term. And I, you know, I don't know how to push back because they're like, yo, what's your city doing? And it's just a little embarrassing. Like, bad enough, like the Sixers and the Flyers got kicked out of the playoffs, and the Eagles have lost for like 2 straight weeks in a row. And the Phillies might just like give it up. They're just playing themselves out of playoffs. So like, bad enough, like Philly sports is all dead, but like, come on, like it is just it's embarrassing and it's troubling because people from other places in the country are noticing. But interestingly enough, we've had double the amount of New Yorkers than from previous times moving into Philadelphia, moving out of New York City and then moving to Philadelphia. So, of course, where there's blood in the streets, hence, and I'm sure the real estate prices in Philadelphia are starting to reflect it. But now more New Yorkers, because the pandemic battered them up and hated that experience, and they figure they can get a little bit more space, and also they can get cheaper prices in Philadelphia by essentially moving down to Philly and making the prices skyrocket. So it'll be interesting to see how City Hall reacts to all of that action. But, you know, we're seeing some recent data showing it's about 75, since the pandemic, about 7,500 New Yorkers moving from New York City to Philadelphia, like relocating, moving a little further down south and looking for more space and some cheaper real estate prices. But that's, I'm sure a lot of people are troubled by that action too. Let me take George out of Center City, who's calling in for a reality check. George?
Charles, how you feel today, my good brother?
Hey, what's happening? All right.
And to all our listening audience wondering who's going to get banged today, nobody's going to get banged today. But Charles, you keep hinting on this violence, but you don't hear what I keep telling you.
Mm-hmm.
It's only going to get worse. Ain't nobody going to say nothing. Everybody in silent mode. Keep your mouth shut. It'll play itself out. They sound like Trump. It'll take care of itself. You know, It's like I say, Charles, and you should do it. Maybe you should come, get on the boulevard, go up to Caroline Road, and everybody talk that stuff. Oh, nobody's going to talk to McNesby. Listen, you don't have to talk to him, but the killing's going to keep going and going and going. It's like the pandemic. It ain't going to stop because, you know, the only ones that can stop it is the police. Now you got everybody laughing about how everybody's talking about this stop and frisk foolishness. You're going to put a law in to say they can't stop and frisk, and that's another tool that McNesby's going to use. Wait a minute, hold it. We can't stop them, we can't frisk them, so what are we supposed to do? Yeah, we know they got guns on them and this and that and the other, but why should this and that? I mean, they already got 10,000 excuses. Be careful. Let
me ask.
I say it all the time.
I know. You said that, and I hear you. I hear that point. I have to ask. Okay, so I know police officers, and I know a few of them. I know they're human beings. I know they work too, and they got to make salary. They got to pay bills. They got to go back home, maintain homes, and put food on the table for families. I get it, and I know they got feelings as well because they're human beings. But what are we saying though, George? Are we saying that that's like the game that McNesby is playing. I feel a way about that, and I think other people should feel a way about that too. So hold back basic city services that people pay for. I mean, the taxpayers pay for, because you're in your feelings about how people. And I get where you're coming from. It's not. I just feel like that's another part of the discussion that we have to unpack. I mean, that and we should be okay with that.
Charles, let me say this here. Why do you keep? It's like you just started in this business. You know how this business works. Stop going on this thing about why, how come.
I know I've been around in it for a long time. Doesn't mean I need to accept it. Doesn't mean I need to accept it sometimes. Certain aspects of it still bother me to this day, George. Okay. I hear you, and I'm not, you know, like wanting to like fight with you on that point, but I just feel bothered about that. I'm bothered when you, and not on account of you, but just like I would even love to talk with McNesby directly about that. Like why? Like really? Like, you know, people need protection, need the basic protection, and should expect that as tax-paying residents of the city of Philadelphia. That's a basic service that they should expect. We should be getting that return on investment. But you're holding those services hostages because, well, you're in your feelings about how.
Yes.
I mean, yes. I don't understand that. I mean, they took an oath.
Charles, can I explain it to you? I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
It only take a half a minute to explain it. Do you think McNesby care about you, me, or anybody else how you think or feel? Yeah. Don't get into your feelings with him because you'll lose. Okay? McNesby got a point to prove, and he's proven his point. When those Negroes sat down with him, the mayor, and the others, and they tried to carve out something, and McNesby wasn't going for it, McNesby went right downstairs and had a press conference and say, it will come a day that you're going to beg us to come in your neighborhood.
Uh-huh.
It's very clear what he said. Now, those Negroes, special group that was in there, you know, making all these type of stuff, they want this and that and the other, they know who they are. Put your tail between your legs, put your ears down, and go on up there and have a talk with the man. I mean, you could do it. Somebody's going to do it, or it's going to keep going on. Those cops going to listen to McNesby because he's the one who defends them, and that's who they put in office to protect them. And so far, they're winning because every time they go to arbitration, they win. Every time their jobs come up, they win. These Negroes are losing. Only thing, listen, Charles, it sounds harsh what I say, but with everything I say, it comes out just like I say because I know what I'm talking about. It's going to get worse because McNesby, you can say he's into his feelings or whatever. His job is to represent the police, and he does it very well. You ain't got to like him, but that's his job. If a person's a painter, their job is to paint. And if they do it well, people want them there. He hasn't been there all this time because now people say, listen, I understand McNesby very well, okay? And I understand his point very well. So, you know, I don't get emotional about this stuff. When I be hearing it and what their position is, these cops going to do what McNesby want them to do, not the mayor. They care less about him. He's only there from 4 to 8 years, and then they got a pension to get. It's all about their pension. So, and why don't you
go
the mayor,
up there and talk to him?
Why don't you go up there and talk to him? Somebody's going to go up there and talk to him, or this crap's going to keep going on. You don't have to believe it.
It'd be a very fascinating conversation. Yeah, I'd like to talk to him. Hey, George, I gotta let you go to break. So basically, and George, George is right about one thing: mayors do not run their police departments. So I hate to spoil that for folks, but that is just the case. We saw that during the summer protests. Like the mayors of these cities do not run the police departments, which is sad. But it's just is what it is. And but it shouldn't be is what it is. Anyway, let me take a break and we'll talk about it more. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let's take a break and we'll be right back.
Pico has many ways to help you lower your energy usage and save money at home. Here's one. If your heating and cooling system is more than 20 years old, it may be time for your contractor to replace it with a high-efficiency Energy Star certified model. You'll get a rebate from Pico and save on your monthly electric bill. You'll find a list of new heating and cooling system rebates at pico.com/rebates. Or you can call 1-888-5-PICO-SAVE for all the details. Plus, find instant discounts on smart thermostats and more at pico.com/marketplace. There's free shipping on orders over $49.
He's back.
This is Reverend Al Sharpton.
Keeping it real with the Reverend Al Sharpton.
In times like these, we have to stay connected.
At a brand new time. Monday through Thursday, 9 p.m. till midnight.
I'm excited that Keeping It Real returns to WURD.
Keeping it real with the Reverend Al Sharpton. Monday through Thursday, 9 p.m. till midnight. This program is pre-recorded. No phone calls, please.
Keep it locked to WURD 96.1 FM, 900 AM.
WURDradio.com. As a business owner, hiring and developing people from the community that your company serves is one of the best ways to show commitment to that community. Let WURD Radio help with Livelihood, our new initiative that connects Philadelphians with companies like yours. We'll feature your business, open employment opportunities, and resources to connect your company with talent and ensure that you reach your target demographic. To learn more about how Livelihood can help you build your team, visit wordworks.com. That's WURDworks.com. Livelihood is supported by the Nightland Fest's Local News Transformation Fund, Borealis Philanthropies Racial Equity and Journalism Fund, and the Solutions Journalism Network. This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Black Talk Media. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check. Phone lines are open, 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check, 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Phone lines are open. Also, a little bit later on, Jennifer Cohn, our election security expert, coming on to join us a little bit later on, the 12 o'clock hour. Talk about what's happening on the election security front, how secure or insecure are our elections, but don't let that hold you back. Don't let that hold you back from voting. I don't want people to get discouraged out there. There's no real reason for you to get discouraged. If anything, it should be getting you angry, and it should be making you. And I'm hoping that people will take that same kind of. Cause I noticed that. Remember back in 2012 when people realized that Republicans were playing games with such strategies as voter ID, they got mad and they stood in those lines. Even in places that were non-battleground states, folks were standing in line for hours. They were like, oh, they're not taking my right to vote away from me like that. So that was when Obama was up for re-election. People have got to have that same energy. I hope that that's the case in 2020. A lot of people realize, and I'm watching a lot of people on social media, including some very prominent thought leaders, some folks who describe themselves as very smart people who admitting that they made mistakes in 2016 and made some wrong electoral decisions in 2016, and they want people to be easy on them and not to relitigate what happened in 2016, because you can make the argument that that was the most consequential election in U.S. history, and people just dropped the ball on that. Okay, we won't relitigate it, but just don't mess this up. Do right in 2020. Like this should be a very simple exercise. People need to get angry, outraged, and very much concerned and activated and overwhelm everything. If everyone is turning out and everyone is encouraging someone they know or other people they know to turn out. I'm not talking about voter registration. I'm talking about turning out. We can defeat this. It can be done. It will be done. But everyone's got to turn out. So I know yesterday was National Voter Registration Day. And that was nice. That was cute. But as the case of Philadelphia, you got a lot of people. We got over 1 million people registered, but then you got a lot of people. Most people don't turn out. Most of those 1 million people, or 1.1 million people, don't turn out. So we need to have that situation where all 1.1 million people, for example, who are registered to vote in the city of Philadelphia are turning out. And I don't think that that's a unrealistic thing to ask for. If you got 1.1 million people registered to vote, okay, so what's the purpose of having the registration in the first place if then suddenly you're going to laugh at me for expecting 1.1 million people to vote? No, that should be the case, especially in an election like this, and especially we're seeing the things unfolding around us Another thing too, we have breaking news coming out of Louisville, right? Louisville. There's supposed to be an announcement at 1:30, an announcement from the grand jury that is deliberating over the Breonna Taylor case. So we're just going to be watching what happens in Louisville, Kentucky, when the grand jury presents its report, its findings to a judge later on this afternoon. That's going to be happening at 1:30 today. A reality check won't be broadcasting, but I'm sure we're going to be watching that very closely and following that on WURD. So just brace yourselves. There has been a state of emergency that's been called in Louisville, Kentucky. So everybody's on alert there. And, the timing of the announcement, I'll say this, the timing of the announcement feels like a setup. So anyway, I don't want to go on, but it just feels like a setup, the timing of the announcement. Let me go to Gary out of Chester, who's calling in for a reality check. Gary?
Mr. Ellis, thanks for taking my call, Mr. Ellis. And I agree with you. It is a setup, and we can see we see exactly what's going to happen. I hate to say it. They're going to make the announcement. We know exactly what it's going to be. Now, Mr. Ellis, this is what I want to say. In the city of Chester, we're predominantly black. So our mayor is black, our city solicitor is black, our captain, our police commissioner is black. Now, since we're predominantly black, we're going to support the black people. Here's I have a problem with you, with Philadelphians. Is that we got black officials, and all I hear is black people always battering them and bashing them, especially black males. Y'all seem to hate the black women councils for some reason. They get on there, and y'all like, and especially the women. They go, I mean, like, it's like, what is all that about? I mean, we all black, and we, before I remember Philadelphia was all white. Now, so we got black representatives. I hear black people complaining. I mean, and Mr. Ellis, it makes me mad. And here's another thing. I ain't never been a Negro. I'm a black American. I'm not nobody Negro. And the idea that I'm paying taxes for a person to be a police officer, and you tell me I got to beg him to do his job?
Right.
Mr. Ellis, thanks for taking my call.
Thanks for that, Gary. We should appreciate the fact, we got a majority black city council. We've got black. I mean, that's the whole point of it, right? To have black elected officials. And I understand. I mean, black folks, black communities, particularly black communities in Philadelphia, have been through a lot, and they've been traumatized by a lot. And they, it's coming from a place of like, we need things fixed, and so the demands are going to be plentiful. And they're going to come strong. And so I get that. But to Gary's point, sometimes, we need to appreciate what we have, right? Because we may not have that anymore. I mean, we live in very precarious times, and things change and things shift very rapidly. And then we're going to be sorry that we don't have any black elected officials, or we have very few black elected officials at all. Now, I mean, it has to be a two-way street. Black elected officials have to understand there's many. I know that there are black elected officials of people who are black and who get into elected office. It's funny you mentioned this, Gary, too. I was having this conversation, very deep conversation with my daughter. She's 15. A lot of the political conversation she hears and the things she sees me do is rubbing off on her. And so she's like, I'm really interested in that world of politics. And I was just telling her, like, well, it's good to get into, but just don't forget where you come from. Don't forget that you have a special kind of unique obligation when you are a black man or woman engaging in the arena of politics. We have to go about it much differently. We can't do it the same way our white counterparts do it. So to that point, in terms of people getting very angry and upset sometimes at, the decisions, the compromises that black elected officials or people in the black political space make. But to Gary's point, he's very much correct. We do need to sometimes, sit back and kind of appreciate what we have. And then that's why I'm always trying to figure out ways to make that connection between people at that grass tops level and folks on the grassroots level who are struggling, and making sure that there's a bridge there, and that they're always constantly connected. We're trying to figure these problems out. Let me go to Joyce out of Germantown, who's calling in for a reality check. Joyce?
Hi, Mr. Ellis.
Hey, how you doing?
I wanted to chime in on what you and George were talking about when it comes to the police department. Half of my family are police officers. Some are kind of nice, and some has been there like 25 years, and they're really arrogant. And they're my cousins, and one's my brother. But the thing is that they go to their union meetings, and, you know, they come out with an attitude. And I said, well, you're black. Can't you open your mouth and say something? And he says, well, the majority of the membership, they're a bunch of white rednecks, and they just do. Just like Marie said, they do what Nesby said. But he doesn't really come out and say it. But you have that couple little henchmen that's on each side of him, since he's so big, that, you know, he does they do the dirty work.
Yeah, he's a big dude.
My say to you is, can't Nesby, well, not can't, but is there any way of getting Nesby out of office? Is there any way to really look at the police department that we're paying taxes for, deal with something more realistic than him getting into his feelings because this is not right? We are paying taxes, and we pay his salary just like we pay the police department salary.
Right, because you play the police officer salary, which ends up being dues that pays for the Fraternal Order of Police in the city of Philadelphia.
Exactly, but we are still paying money there again.
Right.
We're paying for city services that we can't even rely on at all.
Right. I agree. I think that black police officers need to consider something of, I mean, if they're that anxious or they're that concerned or troubled by some of the language that they hear within their police union, they need to rise up. They need to do exactly like how you just said, Joyce. Like they need to speak up and perhaps even consider like totally doing a Richard Allen, like just like, hey, see you, we're out. All the black police officers just leave. Just like go, like do a Richard Allen. Like I don't understand what it is about black people today, like 200 plus years later, how they're not like black people of 200 plus years ago. I don't understand. Like we had, like for example, we had an Underground Railroad 220 years ago. With no resources. Like black people had like what, as the saying goes, like had the pot to piss in, right? Didn't even have a pot to piss in. 220 years ago, but they made an Underground Railroad possible so black folks could escape from the South. 220 years later, we don't even have we don't even, for whatever reason, we don't even have a plan, and we have resource limited. We have some resources now. We can't even get low-income black folks out of Los Angeles and San Francisco away from deadly choking smog from them fires, and maybe relocate them or get them away from hurricanes in places like Louisiana, Alabama, and Georgia. You understand what I'm saying? So it's the same thing as far as this police union situation. It's like, I mean, this is not something new to black folks and black legacy. If you are so upset, you rise up and you leave and you create your own thing. So that's one. Two, people have been talking about defunding the police and abolishing the police. Abolish police unions. That's probably a conversation you probably need to people need to think a lot more smartly and strategically about that, because obviously we found out over the summertime, mayors do not run police departments. Police unions do. So there's your problem. So maybe you might want to look at that. And two, I think we need to seriously look at professional liability insurance for police officers, so that cities like Philly or Louisville, in the case of like Breonna Taylor, so taxpayers aren't on the hook for moments when police officers mess up. Oh, you know what? That's on you. That's your professional liability insurance. You want to keep messing up? Oh, the insurance company pulls your insurance. You can't be a cop anymore. Sorry, hand in your badge and gun. Professional liability insurance. Look it up. It works. And there's some cities small cities that are doing it. Philadelphia might want to check that out. So I mean, it's kind of like data proven, empirically proven things that people have done. There are things that we have done as a community throughout history. We won't entertain. We're not doing it. We're either too afraid to do it, or, you know, the conversation is too uncomfortable. So I'm with you on that, Joyce. We need to look at that differently because we shouldn't have to beg. I mean, that's just common sense to me. It's common sense. I mean, that's a service. Why are we begging? Why are we begging folks to give us city services? I mean, I can understand if it was, you know, and especially you're begging them, and you're begging them from a position of like, you know, I just don't, I don't know. I have a feeling about that. I just feel like that's kind of wrong. Like, you know what I mean? I understand you need labor unions. I think labor unions do exist for a reason, and I think they are essential. And I think that, you know, civil servants, public employees should be protected. I think labor unions should be there. And so I think that, you know, police officers are civil servants, and I think they do deserve worker protections. I do believe in that. But, you know, and, you know, to be protecting your officers in this kind of way by holding back basic services, I mean, I don't know. I don't know, or playing this kind of political game, but I understand. I appreciate George sharing that with us because I think we do need to be aware of it. But you know, there's got to be some kind of breakthrough on that. I agree with you, Joyce. I have to let you go, but you want to real quick? Yeah, I'll give you 10 more seconds.
No, that we've all said it. We need the police, but I notice when the white folks rise up, they don't get in trouble. But let the black folks do it. We're rioting. We're causing a problem, and we're going to tear up the place.
So that's why we have to be smart about how we go about that. Right, exactly. And that's why we've done it before. We've done it plenty of times before. This is nothing new. People acting like some of this stuff is new. It's nothing new at all. But no, I appreciate you, Joyce, for raising that. I think we do need to continue to talk about that. Let me let you go so I can take one other call. Thank you for that. Let me go to Jacob. And I just, a lot of this stuff is just kind of, to me, it's just common sense. I don't think there's anything controversial that I'm saying here. I think people should have a basic expectation of a city service, like, but see, to George's point, George, I know people, they're like, why George gotta say that? I kind of agree with George on this, right? Because people have got to balance things out. You gotta, okay, on one hand, yes, you know, you want to make sure police are treating you right when they're roving through your communities, and there's ways to go about that to affect that change. But you also want to make sure that black neighborhoods, all neighborhoods in Philly, but especially black neighborhoods, have a basic layer of public safety, because black neighborhoods deserve that too. It's not, that shouldn't just be a luxury for white neighborhoods, right? And so, you know, okay, it's like, you know, people talking about they want to defund the police or whatever. Well, okay, so what's your public safety plan? Nobody can tell me yet. What is your plan to keep people safe? I was watching this clip on the local ABC affiliate in Philly, and of this mother who was saying, you know what, my boys, my kids have had to deal with 2 pandemics. You know, they've been dealing, 1 with COVID, and then 2, the violence out in the streets. They can't go out. They had to stay home because of 2 pandemics. And it's just like, you know, you got it. You know, come on, folks. Like, okay, like, you know, you do need to have, to George's point, you do need to have a conversation with the police and figure this all out. Because it can't, you know, it has to be a both and. It can't be either or from one extreme. Either we're going to go in this extreme direction or we're going to go in that extreme direction. Because, I mean, we should be able to just be able to walk out in our neighborhoods and walk through our streets, and our young people and our older people, our seniors, should be able to do that too, even as we're masked up, and not have to worry about getting shot. Like, I mean, we deserve that layer of safety too. Come on. Like, it shouldn't have to be just reserved for Lincoln Drive and Chestnut Hill. Like, you know, we should have it like where I grew up, or even the deeper places in North Philly too. Anyway, let me go to Jacob out of Olney, calling for a reality check. Or even we're in Olney, where Jacob lives. We should have that basic layer of security and safety. Go ahead, Jacob.
Hey, what's up, my brother Ellison?
Hey, what's up? All right.
Hey, look, that Constitution starts with we the people, right? Right?
Right, it does.
Okay, now, you know, this status quo, you've heard this saying, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step, right?
Yeah.
You got to take that first step. We keep on going along just to get along with the way things are. I keep hearing all politics are corrupt and dirty, this and that. Well, we the people let that happen. McNesby is no great power, right? And he ain't no big guy. He's just a fat guy, okay? And the bottom line, he gets paid by taxpayers' money. Any union official get their money from the dues-paying members who are on the tax. So, this thing about do we want to leave things as they are? You spoke about what we had back when we was almost still in slavery, the Underground Railroad and things. We didn't take things because that's the way they are. And people talk like that, like, well, that's the way it is, and the power stuff,
I hate that too, Jacob, because that's a cop out. There's people being lazy. People being lazy because they don't want to do the work. Yeah, they don't want to do the work. They don't want to vote. They don't want to do the work. So it's like, oh, it's just like that's just the way it is. It is what it is. Like, cut that out. Like, just do the work. And it's easy work. Yeah.
And you gotta beg somebody to come in your neighborhood, and we taxpayers, we shouldn't, like that brother said, we shouldn't have to beg nobody for nothing. They should be coming to us. See, if we put it the right way, they should be coming to see what we need so they can better serve us. But we too busy going along with the get along. But let me put it like this: you ever heard of the New World Order? Right? In the New World Order, ain't everything made new? We gonna keep leaning on this corrupt, what do they call it, pecking system that this ugly world has produced. If we do it, we deserve it. But again, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right?
One bite at a time. Yeah, you do. I like that.
Somebody.
I like that. I'm going to use that.
Thank you, brother. Peace.
All right, peace to you too, Jacob. Some wise words. So, yeah, like, it is what you make it, right? So, like, don't get like caught up in or ensnared by the corruption narrative. Like, it's just, it's all is lost. Like, it's what you make it. So, people complain about like corruption in Philly and things in Philly not working right, but then only 12% of the entire Philadelphia population votes on average. Well, that means that 88% of you, and the 88% of y'all complaining about how things going, but you don't want to like participate on like the basic level, where you have a voice or a say. That's how this stuff works. That's how this thing works, and that's very simple. That's not something that's free to do. It's free of charge. I keep telling people like that. I'm going to run on like a broken record, reminding you every time, like, stop complaining if you're not at least on the very basic level participating. Doing that thing called voting, especially when local elections come around. And you're going to complain? Like, come on, like, you're not, why should you count if you're not even, why should your complaint even matter if you're not, like, you're not, and you and everyone else, 88% of the Philly population is just totally tapped out. So, I mean, Jacob makes a good point. Let me take a break, and when we come back on the other side, we'll be talking with election security expert Jennifer Cohn. She's coming up next here on Reality Check, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WordRadio.com, Word TV, Word app. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Weather and traffic to keep you informed for your drive home in the happy hour with Sincerely Sarita, Monday through Thursday, 4 till 7 p.m. right here on Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Former Vice President Joe Biden.
We have to let people know that we're listening, that we not only understand their struggle, but they understand the fact they deserve to be treated with dignity.
Senator Kamala Harris.
Part of the point of freedom is to be free from brutality, from injustice, from racism, and all of its manifestations.
But they're not getting a chance now.
Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have a real plan for police reform.
It means creating a national standard on use of force and conditioning federal funds for police departments on adoption of that standard. It's about giving the United States Department of Justice the subpoena power to investigate systemic police misconduct.
And that's what we're going to do. We're going to change that. I really mean it. I believe with every fiber in my being, we have such an opportunity now to change people's lives for the better. I'm Joe Biden, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Biden for president.
Listen live at wordradio.com.
Recovery starts with a call. Pennsylvania's Substance Use Disorder Hotline is staffed by real people who are trained to help. They're here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They'll get you or your loved one into treatment regardless of your access to insurance. If you or someone you know is suffering from addiction, call 1-800-662-HELP. Recovery starts with a call.
Paid for with Pennsylvania taxpayer dollars. Hello?
Hey, you've been on my mind, so I'm just calling to check in.
Oh, we're holding up well here in Pennsylvania. Just trying to stay safe and figuring out if we should vote in person or by mail. We like going to the polls.
Yeah, you never miss an election.
And you know we're not missing this year either, and neither should you. But which way is the safest?
Well, remember that valuable information you got from AARP about COVID-19? Mom even had me read it.
Yeah, that was good info.
AARP has up-to-date voting information for 50-plus voters in every state. It's right there at aarp.org/election2020.
Oh, I got it. aarp.org/election2020. I love having the answers before your mama.
Pops, you know what happens when you try to show out.
Yeah, you probably right about that.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on Word Radio and WordRadio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check. We're just waiting on election security expert, nationally renowned election security expert Jennifer Cohn. She's supposed to be joining us. Actually does every week. We're bringing her on special content exclusively here on Reality Check WURD at Jenny Cohn, at Jenny COHN1 on social media, on Twitter, where she's highly engaged and very informative too, giving you tips on how you can navigate this very discombobulated election 2020. So we're just waiting on her. Typically she'll join us by Skype, so we're just waiting on her. In the meantime, do we have her now? No, we don't have her yet. Are you there, Jenny? No, we don't have Jenny yet, so I'm sure we'll get her at some point. I know we have her scheduled. Let's just open. Oh no, we have Jennifer Cohn. How you doing, Jenny?
I'm good, thank you. Sorry about that. I forgot we were doing Skype. I mean, I forgot that's right. How we were logging on. Anyway.
All right, good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Always appreciate this. So, yeah, you know, there are a lot of digital tech companies, from Microsoft to Google to even Facebook, Apple. Everyone's trying to fill in election security gaps. There's been a lot of stories, a lot of information and conversation coming out about that. They're getting concerned suddenly about election security gaps. I want to get your take on that, if that's something you've been following briefly, because I guess they're basically saying, well, you know, federal government's not going to do it effectively. So maybe we should kind of, these are private corporations. Is that a good thing, or should we be concerned?
You know, I think it can be sort of in between. And the different proposals or protections that are being put out there all have kind of their individual pluses and minuses, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what are some of those pluses and minuses? Like, I mean, like, are there, because, okay, I wonder about a company like Facebook saying that, oh, hey, we care about election security. We're going to help you fill election security gaps. Well, Facebook, haven't you been sort of complicit in election hacking since 2016?
Yeah, so there's a plus and minus kind of there. So Zuckerberg threw $300 million, I think, toward election security.
Right.
Yes, he does not. I'm concerned because at least $50 million of that money is going to an organization called the Center for Election Innovation and Design, which is run by an individual named David Becker, who spent much of 2016 running around telling people that voting machines, we didn't have to worry about election hacking because voting machines supposedly never connect to the internet. And in fact, I featured his congressional testimony to that effect in a recent video I did, debunking that myth, because I think it did a lot of harm. It's made it really difficult to get traction for eliminating the internet connectivity that actually did exist in some of the precinct ballot scanners, and actually has been expanded since then. So he's actually ironically a purveyor of misinformation who touts himself as countering misinformation. And I'm not saying that the money, the $50 million he used, that none of it will go to anything useful, but I believe it's supposed to go to voter education and countering misinformation. This is a person, he saw my video and he called me a probable Russian asset, which has caused a lot of ripples in the election security community, because he clearly stepped way out of bounds for a transparency activist such as myself, who wants to talk about the vulnerabilities are.
Right. You're like the anti-Russian asset.
I'm the opposite. I'm also very clearly anti-Trump and always have been. So, a lifelong Democrat. So, Hillary supporter, still with her. In any event, yes, I'm like the anti-Russian asset.
Right.
So I'm not too pleased with Zuckerberg's. I'm concerned about his donation. I imagine some of it will go to some good, but I also worry throwing money around without specifying what it should go to can be really dangerous. And an example would be some of the congressional pots of money that have been allocated, millions of dollars for supposed election security without election security requirements. I and just a handful of others kept saying you cannot keep throwing money at this without saying, you can't just call it election security without specifying what it can go to, because there's a lot of corruption. And sure enough, a lot of the money in Florida was spent not on election security, but on electronic poll books, which experts are more and more seeing as a vulnerability. It's not in any way a counter to hacking. It actually increases the attack surface because they're completely unregulated and often connect to Wi-Fi. And the way that the Republicans in Florida have given themselves cover is they claim that it stops that mass voter fraud, which doesn't exist, double voting.
Right.
So they're focusing on voter fraud, and it doesn't even do that. In Georgia, their electronic poll books specifically allow voters to vote more than one. You can hand out an unlimited number of voter cards to any individual voter, and they can just vote over and over. So it's a scam. So I worry about that.
Do we worry about like electronic poll books, voting machines connected by internet, by Wi-Fi? Do we worry, well, then that can create situations of double voting? Maybe that's what they want. They want to create a double voting scenario. Do we have concerns about that, about like those kinds of glitches creating the impression of double voting, which then leads Republicans to falsely claim, oh, there's widespread voter fraud. See, we told you all along.
I think there could be some entrapment going on. Georgia did something real. I don't know if it was on purpose or just incompetence, but they did something really strange where they had two separate pre-runoff primaries, and in one it had just the president, I think, and then in the second one it had the president plus additional races. So if you wanted to go to the second one, if you voted for president in the original one and then went to the second one, you had to make sure that you didn't vote for president again. But a lot of them, when they went there, they were given a ballot that included the president on it again. And especially if you're elderly, like I would imagine my father, if he were still mobile, going to the polls. I mean, of course he would vote it again. He'd just assume it didn't go through the first time.
Right.
It was really the electronic poll books and the poll workers who were not updating the system, and I feel like it was almost entrapment to create. But I mean, I don't know that it was that pre-planned, but yeah, there's that possibility.
Yeah.
Another tech, by the way, I spent a while looking at some of this election tech that's coming out that's supposed to, safeguard elections, and it might be worth going through a few of them, like Election Guard is one.
Yeah.
Because you had asked me about that before. So I did spend a while. So Election Guard is a Microsoft product, and it was tested in Fulton, Wisconsin, and I think it won't do much harm, if any, but it also, I don't think, will really help very much. And here's why. I wish it would, but I don't think so. What it does is it allows voters to determine that after their vote has been recorded and cast, they can go onto Election Guard using something called homomorphic encryption. And check to see, and the system will tell them if their vote was changed. It won't tell them who they've cast their vote for, but it will tell them if their vote was altered. So yes, altered, not altered. And I don't think that is going to improve confidence the way that the people who came up with it think that it will.
Well, right.
People want to know, when it says it wasn't altered, they want to know who they voted for. And on top of it, this is another electronic device from a company that's considered very corporate, and the people who are really anti-corporate are unlikely to trust what Microsoft's product is telling them.
Right,
I mean,
right.
It absolutely could be hacked itself, and Microsoft just had a recent really bad 10 out of 10, according to I believe it's to the Department of Homeland Security, a 10 out of 10 for something called a zero logon flaw, with its, not with its election tech, but with its Windows. So it doesn't have the best reputation about having unhackable technology, and not perhaps the most important problem or failing of Election Guard is there's no way to really act on the information. So it only tells an individual voter, yes, your vote was altered, no, it wasn't altered, but it doesn't tell you the total, the aggregate, which is really what matters, and there's no mechanism to act on it, and I believe it's not even admissible in court. So, you know, what I think it might have, when I say it might do some harm, I certainly don't think that was the intent. I think the guy who created it has a good intent. I loosely know him, but I think the problem is it's another thing that allows election officials to just say we don't need to conduct robust manual audits with a transparent chain of custody, which is a pain in the butt. And they would love to have a piece of tech they can tack on and say, look, we secured it this way. And it doesn't really do that.
You know, my worry too about all these different tech companies jumping in with all sorts of new, you know, kind of shiny, glittery, as you call it, election tech, right? Is that it just seems to me it kind of smells like, oh, okay, we're going to use this very tense, very caustic, bloody election season 2020 to test run these products, this election tech, to see if we can look at on the horizon a future business. And it's like they're not really so much concerned about election security or the integrity of this 2020 election or the overall health of the nation. They're just like seeing this as an opening to test all this new gear. So it's like, you know, using this as a testing, you know, not looking at the elections as, oh, hey, we're American companies or American citizens too. We should be concerned about this. Here's what we're going to contribute. Oh, we're just using this as a testing field. That's my concern there.
Yeah, I don't think that necessarily. Well, for one thing, I can't read minds. And so I do think some of them are well-intended and probably concerned about this election, although many of them, you know, probably have money and are not as concerned as some others might be. But no, I think I think even some of these products are free. I could be wrong about that, but I don't. It's not so much that. It's more I do think some of the people who come up with these products see it more as like a fun puzzle than as a matter of life and death. But again, that's that I'm reading.
Yeah, I'd go with you on that. Yeah, I mean, there is that.
I mean, I don't know for sure. I'm speculating. I don't want to say that they don't have good intent. I think some of them absolutely do. The intrusion detection software is another one, and that's intriguing. But unless you, we don't know where it has been placed, and that kind of goes to the lack of transparency in our election system. Election officials won't tell the public whether they're using it or not, and so I don't know how much that will help. And the bigger problem is will the public isn't being told when intrusions do occur, Florida being the perfect example. We were not going to be told. It had to leak out because of Reality Winner, the NSA veteran. They were not going to tell us. And so without transparency, you know, it may make the people on the inside who get to know feel better, but it's not going to increase confidence that much without a commitment to transparency and telling the public also what's going on.
What's going on?
Detecting it doesn't stop it, and it also doesn't tell you whether they can tell if data was altered. And that was another problem in 2016 is the intelligence community's apparent inability to tell whether data was changed or not. So that's a real problem.
Yeah. Let me ask you. I got you for a few more minutes here, Jenny. Sure. The early voting beginning in 8 states now. So some other states came online Wednesday for early voting. So it's about 8 states thus far. I think Illinois being one of them. What's your assessment of how the early voting's been going? What do we need to watch at the ballots? Have you already been seeing a variety of anomalies or, you know, glitches, things that concern you in this early voting days?
Not so much, actually. So Virginia was the big early one. I mean, there were certainly long lines, and people need to, even if they vote early, they need to bring provisions and just assume they're going to be waiting, you know, for 4 or 5 or more hours, which means folding chairs, sunscreen, snacks, water, maybe bring an umbrella, sun or rain. So, you know, I think it actually went pretty smoothly, and that's good. My concern, though, with all these people voting early, and I'm not discouraging early voting. I think we need to diversify where we vote. We absolutely, as Democrats, well, I'm speaking for not for you, but I don't know your political affiliation.
I'm good. I'm all in. I'm like, yeah, let's get Biden Harris. Let's get this thing.
Okay, all right. So as Democrats, I think
there's no both sidism here on Reality Check. I understand what's at stake. Yeah, go ahead.
Good. So I think we need to win on the election day count and in early voting as well. But I do have some concerns that a lot of early voting, not in Virginia, so that's good. Virginia uses pens to mark their ballots. They actually got rid of all of their touch screens, and they're really proud of it, and they should be really proud of it. And so that, I think, is really good. Even for early voting, they use pens to mark their ballots. They don't use a touch screen. A lot of places, unfortunately, are using touch screens for early voting. And if you're going to do that, I mean, there are concerns. Those are the barcode machines or a QR code, where a barcode or a QR code is the only part counted as your vote. And I have great concerns. There's nothing, I think you should always ask if you can vote with a pen. And by that, I don't mean a provisional ballot. I mean a real ballot, official ballot with a pen. You should always ask. The worst they can do is say no. If you vote with you should bring your completed sample ballot with you. And if you have to vote with a touchscreen machine, most of them, not all, have a paper printout that comes out. There's a barcode on top, and then there's text underneath it. Studies show that 93% of inaccuracies in that text, which is supposed to reflect your selections, go unnoticed by voters. State races are so crucially important this year to gerrymandering and those things. So, and other attempts to take over, the GOP attempts to take over the Republic. You absolutely need to use your sample ballot to compare against that printout, especially as to down ballot races, to make sure the races weren't deleted and that your choices weren't flipped, because they don't put party affiliation next to the selection on these printouts. So unless you've memorized Hank Slawwell, you know, for District 3rd, that was who your guy was, there's not going to be a D or R there to tell you. Everyone should be talking about bringing their sample ballots to the polls. And this includes for early voting. I'm really, really worried about it.
No, thank you for that. You know, I know people have been tuning in every week too, Jenny, and you know, I appreciate, that's why we bring you on every week to continue to tell us that. We've been talking with election security advocate, attorney Jennifer Cohn. Go to @Jenny Cohn, COHN1, on social media, on Twitter. She's highly engaged, got a lot of great information there. Hashtag hand-marked paper ballots. Don't forget that. Hashtag hand-marked paper ballots, protectourvotes.org. She's joining us here.
Tip card too.
Yes, I was about to tell people, go to Jenny Cohn 1. You'll see that tip card at the top of her Twitter feed. I like the way you condense that too, and I'm going to continue to share that as well to folks. Jenny, thanks so much. Good seeing you.
Thank you. It was great to see you too.
All right,
Bye-bye.
We'll talk next week. Take care.
Okay,
bye-bye.
great.
All right, let's take a break, and when we come back on the other side, we are going to take phone calls again, 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. As we get into the final stretch of Reality Check Wednesday midday. Reality Check here on WURD 96.1 FM 900 AM, WordRadio.com, Word TV, Word app. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Dietz & Watson has been making premium meats and artisan cheeses for over 80 years. And when it comes to stacking sandwiches and party platters, they've got something for everyone in the family, like maple honey turkey breast, American cheese, buffalo chicken, and more. So get to your local deli and taste 4 generations of family recipes. With Dietz & Watson on the table, you'll have everyone coming back for seconds and thirds. Dietz & Watson, it's a family thing since 1939. Be heard. Want another way to join the conversation?
Follow us on social media
using the hashtag onWURD.
Be heard.
Stay connected to Word Radio.
Independent Black Media.
Family Therapy Vignette Moments with Dr. Lucille Ijoy. Come on out and become a Word Radio member one by one. Renew your membership or get a new one. Get serious information and have some fun. Call 215-425-7875. That's 215-425-7875. Come on out and become a Word Radio member one by one. Renew your membership or get a new one. Get serious information and have some fun.
Always Best Care is a great place to work.
Flexibility,
leadership, purpose,
great benefits.
There's never a dull moment.
Diversity, inclusion, compasión.
We love our jobs. If you're looking for a great place to work, you can join our Compassionate Team Green. You can apply online at TeamGreenABC.com or call 267-909-9248.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Hi, I'm Melanie DeBose. I'm a single mom and I run a nonprofit. I don't have a lot of free time, and the safety of my family and employees always comes first. That's why I'm voting by mail this year.
Whether you're a Pennsylvania senior, essential worker, or simply someone who needs more flexibility to vote within a challenging schedule, voting by mail allows you to make your voice heard at the ballot box on your schedule while protecting your family's health. You can turn your mailbox into a ballot box by simply visiting votespa.com on your computer or any mobile device to request your mail-in ballot. With November 3rd around the corner, it's more important than ever to request your mail-in ballot today.
This year, I'm voting by mail because it's safe and easy. Voting on my time while keeping my family and employees safe.
We're all in this together, and voting by mail gives you the power to make your voice heard. So sign up at votespa.com or return your mail-in ballot application to your county election office today. Paid for by Power Interfaith.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on Word Radio and WordRadio.com.
All right, phone lines open, 215-634-8065. Toll free, it's 866-361-0900. Sorry about that, Marla Campbell-Harris. You meant WOL as in West Oak Lane, Philadelphia, not WOL Radio in D.C., so I do apologize for that. If you're still on, you're still watching. She was like, I wish I was rocking with that WOL too. Okay, cool. Calvin Moody, Children of Men. Right, you're right. Chiwetel Ejiofor was also big name actor in Children of Men, black British actor out of Children. Also was in 12 Years a Slave too. Was the main character in that. Good afternoon to you, Kimberly Ferris, Julia Jones. Well, good afternoon back at you. So I don't want to get too much into callers disparaging other callers, but I hear you. Junior Lee, the focus must be crime prevention. The police does not prevent crime, they respond. That's a very good point, Junior Lee. I'll give you that as a very good point. First responders, hence first responders. The cops know, and this is more coming from Junior Lee, the cops know who's committing crimes in the neighborhoods. It's all on social media. Yes, it's a very good point. It is. We talked about that. And most of the few criminals are repeat offenders, and investigation should be done on police departments and their practices. I do agree. It will be interesting to see a graph. This is Junior Lee again. It will be interesting to see a graph showing tax revenue collection and the crime rate, or tax revenue collection corresponding with the crime rate. That, you know what? I might look into that. I might check that out. Let me see if those boards are out there. Cousin Wendy, what's up? Cousin Wendy out in the West Coast. I need to touch base with you too. I hope you're okay out there in California, in Northern California. I hope you're okay. I hope you're breathing okay. So good to see you. All right, how are you? Good day, good afternoon. Well, good morning to you because it's West Coast time right now out there on the West Coast. Good to see Cousin Wendy Ellison. All right, let me go to Cliff out of Connecticut, who's calling in for a reality check. Cliff?
Hey, Brother Charles, thanks for taking my call, man. I'll run right through this. Listen, down at St. Louis, Breonna Taylor, we already know pretty much the outcome.
Louisville. Yep,
I'm sorry, you're right. We pretty much know the outcome. And then pretty much, and here's what this is so predictable. And guess what's going to happen? You're going to have white people already on the bus coming down to cause havoc in the community. You know what I'm saying? And then be destructive. And then the white media is going to blame Black Lives Matter, and we have nothing to do with it, and so you already know that. And then the issue with the police officers in the police department, half of them married to white women, maybe some Puerto Rican women. You know what I'm saying? And so when it comes down to the union,
I don't know. I mean, I don't have the empirical data on that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the marriage.
I'm just throwing it out there.
The racial marriage.
I could be wrong.
I can't go on speculation. Yeah, I get.
Okay, fine.
I try to stay away from that. Yeah, when it's sure. Go ahead.
The point is that the unions are very powerful and they're controlled by the whites and then the whites, and so the blacks are not strong enough to overcome or pretty much have representation. They should come out of the union, and so. Now, much respect to those that black organization in the police, in the fire, you know, but sometimes you don't have black police officers that join those organizations, so you have no unity if you don't have members. You know what I'm saying? And then lastly, you still want to deal with the Electoral College. You still want to have faith in that, correct?
Oh, I never said I want to have faith in it. I just said play a game of chess, and black voters should leverage the Electoral College this year. Understand that you are clustered in states with high Electoral College votes, and you can use that to your advantage and make the Electoral College pretty much like an HBCU. I mean, the numbers are there for that.
Okay, then you're going to get the vaccine when it comes out too, right, before the election?
What's that now?
And then you're going to get the vaccine when it comes out too, before the election?
I'm going to get the vaccine too? No, I never said that.
Oh, okay. I thought you were. You're going to see the response before. Okay, I was just checking. Man.
No, I just, I don't want, I think that there's two separate. Cliff always has like the interesting trick questions, but I'm gonna call you Trick Question Cliff. So, but I hear you. I just don't. I think the two separate tracks of vaccine conversations. There's like the simple, like following public health guidelines. Your kids have to get vaccinated before they go to school. Type vaccine that has been done for years, generations, and it keeps a basic layer of public health prophylaxis. There is a separate conversation about the timing of the COVID vaccine, and based on all the signs, not ready. It's not there yet. It's definitely not there. It's going to be a long time before it's there yet. And no, we should not be used as guinea pigs for it. And all this. So I'm going with the science on that, and I like to see more black medical experts and black holistic and wellness folks in on that conversation too, and we need to have more of it here on Reality Check. But thanks for that question, Cliff. I appreciate that. Let me go to Prince out of Schuylkill, who's calling for a Reality Check. Prince.
Oh, Cliff tried to slide one in on you.
Yeah, you're always trying to slide one in on you. I love it though. I love it. I like it. I like keeps me on my toes. I love it though.
So here's an interesting point. They tried to tell me that when Kamala Harris came here, that because of the COVID, she couldn't go all over the city of Philadelphia, or she couldn't have people from all over the city of Philadelphia come and stand at a safe distance to see her and to be a part of supporting her. But she has to travel all over the country. So you can't make that point to say that her being isolated in Mount Airy, in that area, was beneficial to the campaign. So to make this point that the elite people in politics should get a bite at the apple, and the average people, the same ones that didn't get tested, the same ones that they don't know if they asymptomatic or not, can't come and lend support to an opportunity of this woman becoming vice president is just ridiculous. It is ridiculous, and it's like breathtaking.
I mean, but at this point though, Prince, I mean, she was here, she was in Philly. I mean, I'm sure at some point they'll arrange for something where either she or Joe Biden is coming back. I mean, people should be, at this point, just getting ready to get engaged and ready to save the world, ready to vote to save the world. That's the way I look at it. I mean, I think maybe a day or so of conversation about that, about, hey, that visit didn't go the way we would have liked it or expected, I think it's fine. But after a while, it's just kind of sour grapes.
No, you can't advocate for me. Not you. No one can advocate for me if I'm strong enough and independent enough to advocate for myself. And the prima donnas don't speak for everybody. You should give us all an opportunity. I don't care if we got to stand a block away.
I do agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah,
that's all I'm saying. I'm saying don't exclude us based on you sitting at the table. And you more than anybody always talk about transparency. You talk about transparency.
You're right. Yeah,
that's all I'm saying. I'm gonna hang up and listen to you.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that, Prince. I mean, it is, once again, and I did say this last week, it's not a standard run-of-the-mill usual election cycle. This is like Star Wars level good versus evil stuff going on here. And so you got to do things in a fashion that's much more dramatic and much more urgent. And frankly, that also shows a lot more, compassion for that voice that Prince is talking about. And this is, I kind of hinted at this earlier, this is that issue this ongoing issue that a lot of black elected officials have, or that, like, you know, party machines in places like Philly have, and they're going to have to figure out a way to kind of wrestle themselves out of that mindset, because then there's this constant disconnect, and we got to figure out a way to bridge that, because it creates problems, and it creates a situation where things are not solved, right? So there's this constant disconnect between the folks at the grass tops, the folks, you know, and the you know, in the decision-making rooms, to go to the black tie galas. Well, now they got to do stuff virtually. You know, the name droppers, the name callers, the shot callers, and, you know, and they're disconnected from the folks who are on the ground, you know, the folks living through stuff, the activists, the people who are actually doing the work, right? You know, they don't get that kind of fame and notoriety, but they're doing the work. They're there on the front line, and there's this disconnect. And, you know, and it's like, and there's a lot of resentment there. And so to Prince's point, people got to, it's a problem. It is a problem. And it's not just a simple problem of, oh, you know, because they didn't get to see Senator Harris, they just like hating. They hating. It's like, no, that's kind of a cop-out kind of excuse or explanation for that. There's a real legitimate conversation, I think, that's there. There is this disconnect. We know it, and it's very prominent within our community, and it creates a lot of unnecessary divisions. And we're going to have to figure out a way to fix that, because it's just a lot of like problems that can be fixable in a place like Philadelphia and other places. But if we can get past those kinds of divisions, those unnecessary divisions, because there's a lot of divide and conquer going on here, I think that we can start grappling with a lot more and start solving some of these issues, and frankly eliminating things like poverty and high joblessness and high food insecurity and bad dysfunctional schools and things like that. But we got to reconnect or connect the grassroots with the grass tops. Everybody has to be working with one another, not just talking to each other, but collaborating more and more. And so things like events like that visit by Senator Harris, you know, those kinds of fissures, they show themselves, and it becomes, I know it's an uncomfortable conversation, but I think it's a conversation worth having. You know, we're going to have to figure that out. So I agree with where Prince is coming from on that. All right, that wraps this Wednesday midday edition of Reality Check. Sorry about that, Troy. Let me go on to the Black Women's Leadership Council is coming up next here on WURD. So I love my sisters from the Black Women's Leadership Council, so I don't want to take up too much time away from them. They always got some great things to say, so definitely continue to stay tuned, Council. Enjoy your afternoon and your evening, and God willing, I'll see you tomorrow. I'll talk with you then. Take care.